Hello, my name is Terry. Not Terence or Terry, but the feminine version. I've come to the realization that my parents don't care for me. Even my sister, who's 6 years older, used me as a target for her verbal jabs and as a living doll. I can remember the times when she paraded me in front of our relatives, dressed in baby clothes. The humiliation would sometimes make me lose consciousness. But no one cared. It seemed like all the love my family had was reserved for her, and there was none left for me. Growing up, I was scrawny and had no athletic ability. Sports were never for me. I was the quintessential nerd. But I excelled in the classroom, hoping my intellectual abilities would earn me at least some respect from my parents. I was a straight-A student all through school, and it wasn't even that difficult. My teachers were shocked that my parents wouldn't allow me to advance faster, given how far ahead I was of my peers. They argued that I needed to stay with my age group, but my teachers knew I belonged in a university. They arranged for me to take university classes 3 days a week, without my parents' knowledge. It felt like they wanted me to remain available for the bullies and tormentors, those who took pleasure in making me their punching bag. If I had a dime for every bruise and cut, I'd be wealthy. The school nurse even placed bets on what injuries I would have each day. But did anyone stop it? Of course not. Why ruin their fun? I remember when I was in 2nd grade, a teacher called family services because of my injuries. A social worker came to our house. My parents were outraged. They showed the worker my room, clean, basic, with adequate accommodations, light, heat, and ventilation. The worker was invited to join our dinner, a hot, bland, but nutritious meal. The worker left, frustrated by the lack of warmth in our home. But, apparently, not showing affection isn't illegal, only physical abuse is. I kept bringing home report cards full of A's and compliments from my teachers, but all I got from my parents was a cold adequate. Meanwhile, my sister, who struggled to even get a C, got a car as a reward. I couldn't understand why they adored her, the complete opposite of me. To this day, it still hurts, and I never received any explanation. I was expected to follow orders, or else. The weirdness began the year before my sister left for cheerleader school. More and more of her clothes appeared in my closet, as though I was supposed to wear them. I asked her about it, but she just gave me that clueless look of hers. I started noticing odd sensations, like pain in my body, particularly my lower back, which I attributed to some new vitamin regimen. I wasn't dumb, so I suspected something more was going on. I took a few of the pills to my friends at the university for analysis. The results were shocking. They were potent female hormones. I gathered the lab report, which included details about where the drugs had come from, and added that to my growing collection of evidence, photos, videos, letters, and now medical data. I was determined to find out who was behind it. One day, I even went to the lab and, to the amusement of my classmates, allowed them to take samples from my body. They were shocked when the results came back. Someone had implanted me with nanopumps filled with estrogen, progesterone, and anti-androgens. I was unknowingly being guided into a female puberty. But why? My friends, being well connected, consulted several medical professors about the implants, hoping to remove them. I ended up getting some free medical attention. But the results weren't good. The implants were not meant to be removed. If tampered with, they could flood my system with a dangerous amount of hormones. The worst part? They had already started their work. My pelvis was developing like a girl's, and my hips were widening. It wouldn't be long before the other changes would start. The medical professionals couldn't believe someone had done this to me without my knowledge or consent. Had I been a typical child, I might not have questioned the changes in my body, as puberty is known to bring about many odd feelings and physical changes. But this wasn't normal. It wasn't right. I had finally gathered enough information to take down whoever was responsible for what was happening to me. Unfortunately, my friends at the university were right. It had to be my parents, or at least one of them. But the real question was, why? Then came my 14th birthday. Imagine my surprise when I walked into the house to find it decorated with birthday decorations. I even stepped back outside to double-check the address. Was I sure I was in the right house? Seeing my confusion, my parents seemed disappointed. But what did they expect? After 14 years of receiving no affection or kindness, the sudden display caught me completely off guard. The house was packed with relatives, some of whom I had never met before. I was led to believe that turning 14 in my family was a big deal. I was on the verge of running away from the madness when my father, with surprising gentleness, took my hand and led me to the dining table. Who was this person? A pod version of my father? His unexpected tenderness made him break down in tears. It felt like the whole house had lost its mind. My family's emotional range had been limited to mild irritation until now, and here they were acting like they cared. I must have blurted it out loud because the room went silent, and everyone started looking guilty. "We're so sorry, Terry," they said. "We had to do it this way. But not anymore. Now we can show you all the love we've been holding back for so long. Happy birthday, sweetheart." I was still in a state of shock when they seated me at the dining table, surrounded by all these strangers. The entire situation felt surreal. I kept shifting in my chair, hoping for an escape. This was too much for me. I had spent my whole life being invisible in my own home, and now the attention was on me. People were being nice. This wasn't right. I started to get angry. Was this some kind of setup? Was child services about to show up again? And then, I snapped. Enough. Just leave me alone. For 14 years, I've been treated like garbage, and now you expect me to play along? What kind of twisted game is this? I shouted. The room fell silent. Some looked shocked, others saddened. I could hear mutterings like it was expected and not very ladylike. "Terry." That was it. It was bad enough someone was trying to turn me into a girl, but now they wanted to treat me like one too? I grabbed one of the vitamin supplements from my school bag and threw the pills at the people around me. Ladylike. Ladylike. No way. I never took this poison. I'm still a boy, and I'm a man. I refuse to be turned into a girl for your sick amusement. Now leave me the hell alone. My mother and father stood frozen, horrified by my outburst, while they both started crying openly. The relatives, uncles, aunts, cousins, began to leave. As they passed me, they all patted me on the shoulder, whispering, "This was supposed to be a happy time. We're so sorry you found out." Weird. The house grew quiet, except for my parents, who were still sitting on the couch, holding each other and crying. I turned to them with disgust. What did you expect? You wanted me to thank them, to be grateful for being your joke of the week. I've spent my whole life trying to earn your approval, and this is what I get. I sacrificed my childhood to excel academically, and all you gave me was indifference. Not even a well done, son, or good grades, Terry. No. You held me back, made me the target for every jock and idiot who resented my intelligence. You showered my sister with love and attention. She got a car for a C+, and she probably didn't even deserve that. She couldn't pass a class without help, but you treated her like royalty and me like garbage. And now you're upset. This is one messed up family. I shoved my chair back so hard it slammed against the wall. My parents jumped, holding each other even tighter. Disgusted, I stormed out and headed for my lab in the basement. But when I got downstairs, I was hit with another shock. Someone had gone through all my things, papers and books were scattered everywhere. I found the hidden button, opened the door to the secret room. It used to be a cool space for storing canned goods, but no one in the house ever did that, so I turned it into my lab. I'd camouflaged the door so well that it looked like part of the wall. The room was about 15 by 12 feet and held all my inventions. This room was my sanctuary. I had soundproofed it as best I could, using second-hand acoustical tiles and other materials. I even wrapped the entire space in a Faraday cage. This small mesh of metal, when properly grounded, prevents any electromagnetic interference from entering or leaving. It might sound a little like something out of a mad scientist's lab, but with the experiments I was conducting, even the slightest outside electromagnetic influence could ruin everything. What could possibly be so dangerous, you ask? After all, I was just a 14-year-old boy, right? Well, there's something strange I've been dealing with for the past 3 years. I've developed an unusual ability to bond, if you will, with machines. It's as though the machines themselves want to perform at their highest capacity when I interact with them. It's remarkable, every device I've used, I've surpassed all benchmarks. With computers, it became almost eerie. I felt as if I was merging with them, working through one experiment after another. As time went on, and my parents drifted further away, I became closer with my machines, computers, gadgets, and even some fascinating devices I'll tell you about later. They became my children, and in return, they gave me the support and affection I never received from my family. Maybe I was a little crazy, but honestly, you'd probably be too if you lived my life. I closed the door behind me and let out a sigh of relief. In here, I was safe, loved, and protected by my creations. Lately, I had veered off my usual path, diving deep into the realms of physics, quantum mechanics, mesons, tachyons, and more. My brain absorbed the information like a sponge. I was fascinated by esoteric theories and, most exciting of all, I was exploring the possibility of time travel. It wasn't hard to grasp that tachyons, particles moving out of sync with everything else, had a reversed temporal signature compared to normal matter and energy. I was trying to extract information from these time travelers in an attempt to see the past. To even observe and trap these elusive particles, I had to invent my own devices. They were so advanced that they could have earned me a Westinghouse Prize. Using coherent energy, like lasers, I created instruments of light that could capture, like pincers, tiny particles of energy and plasma, blends of matter and energy as small as 0.0005 microns. Tachyons, in their natural state, were typically between 0.0099 and 0.0055 microns, so snaring them was relatively easy. Naturally, I had to write a computer program to guide my devices in how to handle these particles. As always, the exchange of information went smoothly. Using my computer, I could grab a tachyon and, with my reader, extract data from it. I was thrilled because I thought I had finally gathered enough information to translate the data I had collected. I discovered that many tachyons, which I'll just call T's from now on, carried similar data, so I created a program to isolate the commonalities before attempting to translate. To put it simply, imagine a DVD player pulling data from a spinning disc and delivering a continuous stream to produce a movie. Oh, and did I mention that T's spin? It's the opposite direction of a disc, but with the right tools, which I had built, it could be read. At first, I was excited to find that my T's stored multiple layers of data, like the layers of an onion. But then my excitement waned as I realized the data was from various locations. These particles had really traveled. If I could manage to gather enough of these T's, the past could be revealed like a book. Better yet, since the data was like audio and visual recordings, we could actually watch and listen to the past. This breakthrough could put me and the university on the map. I had no hesitation in sharing my findings with my friends at the university. They had been there for me and allowed me access to all the resources I could ever need. They saved me from a life of ignorance. They were my true family, and they constantly marveled at my inventions. While I was lost in thought about family and other personal matters, my machines had been hard at work. I had been collecting data from the T's for nearly 4 months now, and I was getting more anxious for the information they contained. Then, my computer beeped. There was enough data to create a meaningful segment. My heart raced. I was ready. I turned to the screen, played the data back, and settled in, eager to see what would unfold. What I was seeing left me in awe, but didn't quite capture it. It was more like a religious experience. I was witnessing the inside of my own house. My parents were there, along with my uncle Zeth, who had always been the family's self-appointed witch hunter, a real jerk if there ever was one. And Brandy was there too. They were arguing about something, and Brandy was crying. And I was there, right in the middle of it, as a direct participant. It was starting to make sense. The tachyons I had collected had somehow bonded to me, and now I was seeing either my past or future. It was as if they were talking about me while I was right there with them. I wasn't moving. The image was stable, almost as if I were drugged or restrained in some way. I fine-tuned the data stream for audio and soon heard my Uncle Seth speaking. He was going on about how I should be terminated before I broke the control. Apparently, I was some kind of supervillain who would eventually kill them and then destroy the world. I told you he was out of his mind. What really struck me was how my own parents were nodding in agreement with his delusional ramblings. Brandy, in tears, kept begging, "Please don't kill my brother," over and over, until Uncle Seth turned around and slapped her hard. "Sit down," he shouted. In that moment, something in my father snapped. He stood up and punched my uncle, knocking him out cold. "You bastard. She's what you made her. If you ever touch her again, I'll kill you." My usually calm and stoic father was livid, spitting each word with fury. From the shocked look on Uncle Seth's face, it was clear he had pushed things too far. But the data was becoming unstable. I stopped the playback and switched everything back to collection mode. So, they planned to kill me, huh? Well, I didn't think so. My anger sharpened my focus, and I began devising a plan to get the answers I needed. I no longer saw them as family. To me, they barely registered as human. 6 hours later, I had created 6 transdermal discs with intelligent programming. I also made a master disc that I would implant in my cerebral cortex. Once I implanted the others, I could control whoever they were attached to. The tables had turned. Quietly, I slipped out of my lab. The house was still and peaceful, my guinea pigs were all asleep. I grabbed 2 of the discs and the injector, then went upstairs to my parents' room. With 2 swift hisses, I implanted the discs, changing the power dynamics in the household. Now I would finally get some answers. But I could wait until morning. My brain was exhausted from hours of intense work. First, I needed something to settle my nerves, maybe a nice glass of milk. I sat down at the kitchen table with my glass of milk and noticed a thick pamphlet with a pink ribbon addressed to me. I was surprised at first, but then as I looked closer, my anger grew to a level I had never felt before. This was no ordinary anger, it was cold, icy fury. The title on the brochure read Summer Camp, showing images of beautiful beaches, bikini-clad women lounging in the sun, playing volleyball, and dining in exclusive restaurants. At first glance, it looked like paradise. But when I read more closely, the truth hit me: none of the women in the pictures were women at all. The camp was for crossdressers, sissies, and transgender individuals, and it was meant for me. My so-called loving parents were sending me to a camp for people like that. I apologize if my words offend anyone, but I was furious. One of my best friends at the university was gay, and his boyfriend always picked him up dressed to the nines in stunning femininity. George had impeccable taste in girlfriends. I had no doubt that Daphne, his girlfriend, was a real woman until one day, she bent over to pick up a computer disk in front of me, and all doubt vanished. I saw her, his organ, clearly through the thin silk of her panties. How did she even manage to bend like that? I now knew who was behind altering my body with hormones. There was no question, they wanted another girl in the house. That would explain the subliminal messages being fed to me in my bedroom at night. I'd discovered it 2 months ago when I was sweeping for bugs. Following the signals led me to the living room, where I found 5 unmarked DVDs in the DVD player. In my lab, I was able to analyze what they were. If my family had succeeded in their efforts, I would now be nothing more than their subservient, crazed bimbo, just like Brandy. Was that possible? No. Maybe. Yes. It explained a lot. And now I had many questions for my parents. You wanted the truth, right? It was a beautiful morning, the sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and I could hear the distant sound of someone mowing their lawn. I had slept incredibly well and felt refreshed. Having control of my life again was a definite plus, and the knowledge I was about to gain had me practically singing as I went through my morning routine. I still fought the urge to put on makeup, but I could resist. It seemed the DVDs had been working on me longer than I realized. Someone was going to pay for that. Messing with someone's mind is just wrong. I heard Uncle Zeth in the kitchen. Well, all the players were in place. It was time for the show to begin. I grabbed my injector, a mind control disc, and headed downstairs. I know what you're thinking, how could I, of all people, do the very thing I despise? But remember, this was my family, the ones who did it to me first. I hummed to myself as I descended the stairs, pleased with how everything was turning out. Just think, the very intellect they tried to suppress was about to change their lives for the worse, if I had anything to say about it. Oh, I definitely did. Heh, heh. They deserved that creepy laugh since they had programmed it into me. I quietly approached Uncle Zeth, injected him, and then continued to the kitchen table as if nothing had happened. I had to wait a minute or two for the chip to take effect, so I grabbed some coffee, made toast, and sat down to eat, all while the room remained eerily silent. Well, except for Brandy's crying. Holy crap. This was one of the scenes I had seen from my tease. Maybe if you know what's going to happen, you can rewrite history. But there was no way I was going to just sit back and watch this unfold. For show, I grabbed the summer camp brochure and asked my parents, "Is this my birthday gift?" They clearly misunderstood my tone and became quite animated. "Oh, yes, Terry. We thought you'd love it. We wanted to make up for how we treated you the last few years. Your Uncle Zeth was concerned that too much emotion would upset your delicate condition. We're so sorry for the past, and we only want the best for you. We've always wanted that, but your Uncle Zeth was the one calling the shots," my parents said, glaring at Uncle Zeth. Brandy still cried, and Uncle Zeth just sat there, smug as ever. "So?" I asked, making sure to get their attention. "You love me so much that you'd send me to a camp like this? You'd rather I be a pathetic, simpering fool than a man?" I threw the brochure at my mother. "What are you talking about, Terry?" she asked, looking at the brochure as if it were the first time she'd seen it. "Oh my God, George, have you read this?" she asked, turning to my father. The answer was clear in his face. "Jesus Christ. Are you the one behind those pills too?" she demanded, her glare aimed at him. Without warning, she slapped my father so hard he fell off his chair. "You sick bastard." Turning to Uncle Zeth, who wisely watched her with caution, she said, "This is your idea, Zeth?" She walked over to my side of the table and sat next to me. "My God, honey, please believe me when I say I had no part in this. None. My brother-in-law came to me with some nonsense about you being a potential superpower and that if we didn't keep you emotionally suppressed and downplay your intellect, you'd turn into some kind of supervillain who would destroy us and the world. He showed us medical evidence that you had an extra gene that would give you these powers when you turned 14. We've been terrified of you for years. I always saw the frustration and anger in you, but never any signs of violent tendencies. I've had doubts about all of this for months. And now this, hormones, mind control, and that damn summer camp to turn you into that." "Thank you, Mom, I believe you," I said. "You were probably brainwashed too, just like the rest of them." My mother's eyes widened. "You sons of bitches. George, I want a divorce. And if either of you two try to stop me, I'll turn you both in for what you did to Brian and what you tried to do to Terry. You know I'll do it. You can try to implicate me, but I don't care. You both deserve to rot." I was stunned. Who's Brian?" I asked, confused. I had assumed she meant Brandy. But then she pointed a trembling finger at Brandy. I immediately stood up and gave Brandy a hug. "You guys have already done this to her?" I asked softly. Uncle Zeth, as expected, tried to take control of the situation with his usual air of superiority. "Yes, Edith, you know this was necessary. Both of your boys carry the gene. In fact, all the boys on your side of the family do. You're a freak of nature, Edith, bringing into this world the very disease that will destroy it. If it weren't for me, everything would be lost. Shut up and sit down, Zeth, I snapped, triggering his implant. With a startled expression, he immediately sat down. He tried to speak, but my command kept him silent. I turned to my family and explained what had been happening. The pieces had fallen into place for me the night before. The simplicity of it all was staggering. Poor Uncle Zeth, I said, my voice calm. He's just an envious jerk. The gene never manifested in him. He never got to experience greatness. That's what's been eating at him for years. So, he came up with this twisted plan to get revenge on us, starting with the boys. But he didn't stop there. He had to abuse us, too. Then, when it became medically possible, he feminized us as well. And by the way, he enjoyed messing with Brandy, he loved it. The beauty of Zeth's plan was that, even if he missed the feminization part, the years of abuse would break us at puberty. That would give him the proof he needed to keep doing this over and over again. Isn't that right, Zeth? Tell the truth, I demanded. That was the trigger. Now, Zeth had no choice but to tell the truth. And he spilled every last dark detail, revealing his twisted motivations. At first, my parents didn't believe it. But as Zeth's sickening confessions poured out, their faces changed: shock, anger, and finally, a chilling silence. Zeth had sealed his fate. I held up my recording device for them to see. I'll be selling CDs in the lobby, I said, with a hint of sarcasm, but a deep sense of satisfaction. Mother giggled nervously and then quickly covered her mouth. Sorry, sweetie. Father finally spoke, his voice thick with rage. So, I've been fooled by this piece of trash, and now I've helped ruin 2 innocent lives. A simple murder-suicide might not even be noticed, he said, reaching for one of our large kitchen knives. As much as I would have enjoyed watching the next scene unfold, I had other plans for Uncle Zeth. Please sit down, Father, and put that knife down, I said, my voice steady. His face showed surprise as he tried to resist my command. How could you fight your own mind? You can't fight it, Father. I have complete control over everyone here. What did you expect? You pushed me to the brink. If I hadn't discovered my gift 3 years ago, I would probably be Brandy's twin sister by now. Mother, overcome with emotion, began to cry. Father looked devastated. He sat down heavily and threw the knife onto the table. Okay, I hadn't specified the details of my commands, but it was interesting to see how quickly my father found the loopholes. Maybe he was developed too. I waited until Brandy joined us and then outlined my plans for the family. Of course, Uncle Zeth had earned a prominent place on my list for revenge. Just then, my mother snapped me back to reality by pointing at my hand. What is that? She asked. As you remember, we had just heard the truth from Uncle Zeth. I had my recording, my father wanted to kill him, and my confused mother was crying. Suddenly, though, my mother stopped crying and pointed at the back of my right hand. What's that? I looked down at what she was pointing to and was surprised to see a growing patch of a silvery substance. As I focused, I realized it was acting like an antenna. The more it grew, the more information I was receiving. I instinctively understood that it was forming a protective barrier between me and the rest of the world. As I pondered the how and why of this, I realized it was yet another part of my gift. At first, I had thought my ability to control mechanical devices was impressive, but this was only the beginning. As the silvery substance spread, my understanding expanded with it. It was alive in some sense, determining when it was ready to activate more of itself. When it made contact with my clothing, it simply dissolved it. Later, I realized it was converting the matter into energy and storing it for future use. I stood there in the kitchen, completely undressed, and it was unmistakable I had fully transitioned into a female. A young woman, around my true age of 14. I resembled a statue made of silver, embodying the form of a stunning girl. Even my hair had taken on a metallic silver sheen, flowing like real hair, and my skin was soft and supple, though silver instead of flesh. I couldn't help but giggle and said to my mother, "Well, looks like Uncle Zeth got his wish." I don't think this is exactly what he had in mind, though. My mother and I shared a real mother-daughter moment as she stood up and gave me a big hug. I could feel it, but I knew that I could withstand 1,000,000 times that pressure and it would feel the same. "No, darling, I don't think this is anything close to what he wanted," she said, glaring at Uncle Zeth, who flinched in his seat, frozen in place after spilling his secrets. He knew his life was over. He could sense that whatever power he had once held was now slipping away. I felt oddly at peace with this transformation. Just a short time ago, I would have done anything to stop it. But now, I knew this was how it was meant to be. My gifts, the ones I was still discovering, would function far better in a female body. If being a girl was necessary for these incredible abilities, then so be it. Brandy, ever the problem solver, came to life with her usual enthusiasm. "Mom, Dad, you keep an eye on the rat while Sis and I go get her some clothes," she said, tugging at my hand. She led me upstairs, and I knew that if I stood still, nothing could move me. But I also felt a wave of love for my sister, realizing that she had once been my brother, Brian, and had endured the same plot orchestrated by Uncle Zeth to prevent her from becoming developed like me. For what she had suffered, I vowed to help her heal as much as I could. She deserved that, and so did my cousins who had been victims of the same fate. Brandy and I spent the afternoon going through clothes, and I had a blast. Soon, I had a great starter wardrobe of my own, made up of Brandy's hand-me-downs. These were all in excellent condition and the latest styles, perfect, since Brandy was still growing and couldn't wear them anymore. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, we bonded, and I began to think and feel like a girl. I think I absorbed it from Brandy. Every so often, I'd look up and see Mom giggling in the doorway, watching us. Brandy put my new collection of clothes into her other closet, which was now my closet, and organized my undergarments into a set of drawers, my drawers. It seemed natural that I'd share her large bedroom with her. I was in girl heaven and lost track, not really, since I could never forget anything again. I'll explain later, of how many hugs and squeals of joy we exchanged that day. Strangely, while part of me was fully engaged with my sister, enjoying the afternoon and soaking up everything about being a girl, another part of me was aware that I was absorbing knowledge at an incredible rate. It seemed I could listen in on any transmitted data, decode it effortlessly, and store it away in my mind. For a brief moment, I was concerned my brain would explode from the overload, but that didn't happen. My gift had created a kind of pocket universe where my mind resided, able to expand as needed to accommodate new information. I had become more than human, but I still felt like Terry. Just a bit more than before. Then, I had an idea and decided to test it. I asked Brandy to stand by my side and held her hand. As I concentrated on the room, I could feel her gasp of amazement as the bedroom around us began to shift. Within moments, the room expanded by 50%, now featuring 2 identical queen-sized beds, covered in silks and satins with throw pillows and stuffed animals. One bed was in teal, and the other in fuchsia. I had created. It was every teenage girl's dream room. Even I couldn't deny the allure. Brandy was thrilled, oohing and ahhing as she marveled at all the changes. We now had computer desks with the latest systems, a fully equipped vanity with all the right cosmetics. Not that I'd need them, yet. I had this sudden thought. Was that my thought? I felt strangely confident that I would never again be swayed by anything other than my own thoughts. The bathroom had expanded too, now featuring a jacuzzi-style tub for 4, 3 sinks along one mirrored wall, a bidet, which made Brandy giggle, a toilet, and a shower stall with 4 sets of strategically placed water jets. Sis and I were going to be very clean girls. I felt a slight fatigue as I realized I had used up my energy reserves creating everything, but I could already feel myself recharging. Brandy, ecstatic, jumped around, clapping her hands, laughing, and squealing in joy. I received many hugs as she tried to get me to bounce with her. Finally, I joined in, and we bounced all over the room, ending up breathlessly collapsed on her bed. I bet we sounded like a herd of elephants from downstairs. But I was happy for her. She deserved this joy after everything she had been through. A sudden commotion erupted at the end of our street, about 3 blocks down. I didn't even need to look out the window to know the cause. It was me. My data gathering had tripped alarms around the world as I infiltrated, filtered, and extracted information, leaving with the knowledge of countless sources, broadcasts, satellites, the internet, even government systems, and some unknown sources as well. Naturally, governments and corporations were concerned. But when they realized they weren't the only ones with their secrets exposed, they panicked. I could hear their thoughts, yes, another aspect of my gift, suggesting everything from alien invasions to global security breaches. I quickly adjusted my data collection, toning it down to a much more passive and subtle drain, rather than the all-consuming, Hoover-like method I had been using. I already had nearly all the world's data stored in my other dimensional mind. To the outside world, I had simply vanished. Like a ghost, I thought to myself. Yes, a silver ghost. Part 2. Amid the panic on the street at my sudden disappearance, Brandy and I left our newly transformed room and made our way downstairs. I was hungry. I knew I didn't actually need to eat anymore, but it still served to maintain and expand my energy reserves. It was a sobering thought to realize that I was no longer truly human, and with each passing second, I was moving further away from humanity. But even as terrifying as some of the changes were, they were also deeply satisfying. I was the most powerful being on the planet right now, if not alien. And more was coming. I was the sole recipient of the last 4 gifts, and Uncle Zeth had unwittingly turned me into a goddess. We arrived downstairs to find the kitchen empty. Had Uncle Zeth escaped? No, I knew where he was. He was with my mother and father in the den. I calmed Brandy before she could get too worked up. As I did, I realized my sense of dread had also subsided. Apparently, I was picking up on Brandy's emotions. Wait. I'm an empath. The realization hit me instantly. I had received all the gifts that were meant for the boys. Theoretically, I could infuse a copy of their gifts into them later, but for now, I was quickly approaching godhood, goddesshood. There seemed to be no limit to what I could do. I took stock of my powers. I could control any machine. I could convert matter to energy and vice versa. This felt like the strongest ability, yet what couldn't I do? I could control anyone with my thoughts. I had empathic abilities, tied into my mental control. I could gather information from any source and understand it completely. My body was coated in a molecular film that absorbed anything I wanted while isolating me from the universe's rules. I could ignore gravity at will, which meant I could levitate, or even fly. My skin could protect me from all forces directed at me, and I could absorb kinetic energy from attacks. I could use my skin as an exoskeleton, giving me incredible strength. This, combined with my ability to defy physical laws, meant I could move planets and stars. My mental safety protocols ensured that I wouldn't lose control, so I took all of this in without panicking. I could easily destroy this planet and everyone on it as easily as I could breathe. But even with these powers, I was still fundamentally good. I feared that I might be corrupted, but a small voice inside me reassured me. As long as I fought to stay true to my nature, I would be fine. Brandy glanced at me, mistaking my pensive silence for concern over the empty kitchen. I think they're in the den, sis, she said. Oh. Yes, thanks, sis, I smiled at her as we walked to the den. I was surprised to find that my entire introspection had only taken 5.78 seconds. Oh, stop it, I told myself, amused. I was still thinking in the singular, after all. I would seek help if I ever started referring to myself as we or us. As we entered the den, we saw Uncle Zeth tied to a chair, gagged, and clearly uncomfortable. Brandy and I shared a look and then giggled at the sight. Mom came over, shushing us with a smile. Your father is calling a family gathering to meet here as soon as possible. I think we're in luck, most of the relatives are still here after your botched birthday party. We should try that again. Young lady, you need birthdays. They give you a sense of family foundations. God knows we need those right now. She shot a look at her brother-in-law. If looks could kill, he would be a pile of ash. Father finished his calls and turned to us, all smiles. Well, I heard you two having fun upstairs. I'm surprised you didn't go through the ceiling at times. His face was still grinning. The family should be here by 7. I'll order pizza. He strode off to the kitchen to grab the number off the fridge and make the call. Well, that was fast, Mother commented aloud. I should go clean up and change. She turned to us. What you girls are wearing should be fine. Keep an eye on the RAT, will you? And with that, she headed upstairs. I couldn't help but stare at Uncle Zeth. There was something distinctly off about him, and for once, I couldn't put my finger on it. But I could feel my search engine kicking in, and thought, maybe, just maybe, I could switch back to my Hoover mode temporarily. I adjusted the input speed in my mind, but no sooner had I done so than it switched back to the softer, more passive mode. I thought that was odd until a sudden realization hit me. According to the data I had gathered, by now likely the size of the solar system, Uncle Zeth was possessed. What? Was I becoming some kind of mystical expert now? No. It turned out that because I could detect all types of energy, I could see the faint black aura surrounding him. It wasn't obvious, but it was there. The energy was of a kind I had never encountered before. My senses were working overtime trying to identify what it was. Father returned and asked us girls to set the dining table to the max for the impending family arrival. While we did that, I kept analyzing the energy around Uncle Zeth. Just then, the pizza arrived. Father paid for it and brought it into the kitchen. Mother took that as her cue to come downstairs, and when she did, she was resplendent. Brandy and I both paused, staring at her. She looked absolutely stunning, more beautiful than we had ever seen her. Brandy and I, in perfect unison, exclaimed, "Mother, you're incredible. You look gorgeous." We giggled and pulled her into a double hug. Both she and I oohed with excitement. I backed off a bit as I realized I needed to be careful with my hugs from now on. Father entered, saw us together, and started to cry. I rushed to him to comfort him. He said he was just so happy. We were a family again. Of course, Murphy's Law kicked in just then. The doorbell rang, and over the next few minutes, the rest of the family arrived. I became an instant hit, as all the women oohed and awed over my beauty. No one mentioned my silver appearance, and the birthday wishes came pouring in. This time, I gladly accepted them, hugging everyone, even the men, who didn't pull away. I was touched by the family's warmth. Presents were handed out, and pizza and soda were devoured. It was a great time. And honestly, I wasn't at all upset by the feminine gifts I received. After all, I was a girl now. The party eventually wound down, and the family got to the serious discussion. The kids were sent to the family room to watch movies or something while the adults gathered to talk about Uncle Zeth. Father placed my recorder on the table, and once the room fell silent, he pressed play. The reactions were as expected. The men wanted to castrate him, and the women wanted to burn him at the stake. That's when I knew. My mind screamed it. His aura was the blackest of dark magic. Uncle Zeth was indeed possessed by a particularly malevolent demon or black wizard. The men dismissed my revelation, but the women and I went into the den to look again. There were no doubts now. I pointed out the swirling, sinister energy that surrounded Uncle Zeth to the women, many of whom I now realized were witches. This evil force had been eradicating any potential enemies in its path. It had no idea that the gifts within our family would not be denied. The men might have gained power from these gifts, but the women got their share, usually in the more esoteric and far more powerful arts. As the women and I probed further, I could feel the energy gathering to leave. I couldn't allow that. I immediately formed a barrier of electromagnetic force around the house. A low growling laugh echoed through the house, and a chilling voice filled the air. "Ah, Terry, my dear. That barrier is like tissue paper to me." To prove the point, the entity left Uncle Zeth, who collapsed, and shattered my barrier as if it were nothing. I collected myself and pursued it. Unknowingly, I also gathered the women and brought them along. This, as I would later learn, was what saved me. At this moment, I was learning my own abilities. Time seemed to lose all meaning as I chased this foul entity, the force that had nearly destroyed my family. Eventually, we arrived at a dark castle, perched within a shadowy, forsaken land. I had no idea where we were, but I knew it was the seat of evil. The entity, sitting on a dark throne, was taken by surprise as I appeared, bringing light from my world with me. Many of its minions fell dead at the sight of me, while others shrieked in agony. Looking down, I saw I was unclothed again. It was one of my favorite outfits. I was furious. Without a second thought, I launched myself at the creature in a powerful dive. I struck it hard in the head, and it staggered back. But its massive arm swung out, catching me with a blow that sent me crashing into the throne room wall. Damn, that hurt. So much for my invulnerability. As I struggled to regain my bearings, I noticed, out of the corner of my eye, that when I was hit, some of my silver coating had sprayed off onto a few of the creature's underlings. They writhed in agony, their screams filling the room as the silver burned through them. Mithril, I thought. A bane to many supernatural beings. I know it can kill werewolves. Without hesitation, I charged at it again. My strike rocked the entity, and I'm sure it caused it some pain. But it retaliated more slowly this time, though still fast enough to send me flying back into the wall. I felt bruised from the impact, and that was when I noticed something that made my heart sink. I wasn't receiving any energy from this place. Each time I hit the creature, I was depleting my own reserves. This was a no-win situation for me. It sensed my fear. It laughed that soul-chilling laugh again. "Oh yes, my little neophyte. You don't have the power to defeat me here. But I can kill you, and I intend to." With those words, it lunged at me, mercilessly pummeling me with its immense strength. I felt myself starting to fade, the world growing dark when, suddenly, the room erupted in light. The women who had been with me took a different temporal path for reasons unknown to me, and arrived 15 minutes behind me. I felt a surge of energy, a refill to my reserves. Not only was I full again, but I was overflowing. I felt an overwhelming clarity. I knew what I had to do. I was the only one who could do it. They had brought the power, but it was only a temporary boost. I easily deflected the creature's attacks as I memorized the ritual I needed to perform. Once I had it in my mind, I unleashed a powerful blast of energy, sending the creature sailing backward in pain, crashing into its throne and knocking it over. Gathering my newfound power, I shaped it into the ritual of banishment, a spell older than the entity itself. As I worked, there was no room for error. The women held off the creature's minions while I focused. From the corner of my vision, I saw beams of light striking down and obliterating many of the lesser creatures. As the ritual took its final shape, the smaller demons and beasts fled in terror. The Dark Lord had regained its feet and was charging at me, its final attempt to destroy me before I could finish the ritual. I could feel it coming closer, the air thick with its malevolent presence. It struggled like a trapped beast, fighting against the force I had created to hold it back. I paid it no attention, pouring every ounce of energy and intellect into completing the ritual. It was almost upon me, and I heard the women cry out in unison. The ritual was complete. I released every last bit of power I had, singing the words of the ritual with intensity. With each tone, the creature stumbled back. I could hear the women singing in harmony with me, their voices providing a counterpoint to my own. In the back of my mind, I realized that my voice was angelic in nature, and it seemed to add more power to the invocation. Suddenly, the ritual reached its peak. There was silence. Absolute, eerie silence. Nothing moved. My heart dropped. Had I failed? Had I ruined our only chance? I saw the Dark Lord straighten up and begin to laugh. But then, from the four corners of the universe, light surged. It not only lit up the throne room but penetrated the very walls around us as if they weren't even there. The light spread, and it illuminated the entire world. With a final, ear-piercing screech, the Dark Lord exploded. Fiery cascades of its essence filled the room before being sucked back into the abyss from which it had come. The castle and the land around it crumbled, vanishing with the evil that had supported it. The women and I found ourselves standing in a small clearing on top of a hill, gazing out over a completely transformed landscape. I was initially stunned. I honestly thought I had messed up. But then, I felt my energy levels surge again. The evil had been removed, and the light could now flow freely. I looked around and saw that the land was no longer dark and barren. It was alive with vibrant greenery. Fields of flowers stretched out, small glens and forests with waterfalls adorned the landscape. It was a fairy tale world. As I processed this, I noticed my first little person, an actual elf. Looking around, I saw more fairy tale creatures emerging. They were all staring at me as though I were some kind of goddess. The first elf came forward, bowed his head, and knelt on one knee, speaking to me in an ancient language. My mind raced, trying to decipher what he was saying. It came to me in a rush. The dialect was an old form of Gaelic that hadn't been spoken in millennia. And then, without my realizing it, my mind started absorbing all the rules of magic. I was also taking in every spell these creatures knew, though I wouldn't fully understand that until I returned to our world. The elf, who introduced himself as Oberon, was evidently the king of these people. He expressed his deep gratitude in ornate, flowery language for saving him and his kingdom from the dark. I gathered from him that, thousands of years ago, a malevolent sorcerer had stumbled upon their land where the little folk had settled after mankind began spreading across the world and initially appeared harmless. Some of the sprites, being mischievous, had taken to teasing him, and one day, he struck back. Over time, the sorcerer had been building his power. With a mighty spell, he drained the very life from the land, casting it into a dormant state. While no evil could truly kill the wee folk, separating them from their power and rendering them unable to fight was another matter. The sorcerer's power grew darker with each passing year until, one day, he transformed into it, the Dark Lord. Even in its infancy, the Dark Lord sensed its nemesis in another world. Unable to act just yet, it bided its time. Finally, it found a vulnerable mind, a mind that couldn't fight back. That mind was Uncle Zeth, a weak-willed man, resentful of those with power. He became an easy target. From there, the Dark Lord systematically destroyed everything that could pose a threat. If it weren't for my early puberty and the powers that came with it, I might have never fought off my family's attempts to eliminate the last remnants of the Dark Lord's enemies. I introduced the other women from my family, and I noticed that they, too, seemed to be recharged. I saw this with a new part of my mind, one that was rapidly learning magic. It was all just another form of physics, after all, and that had always been my favorite subject. The source of power from the light was strong here. We spent several days with the wee folk, learning from them, and them from us. They invited us back anytime. They named us the princesses of the realm and gave each of us a ring or pendant as a token of their gratitude. These gifts also served as keys, allowing us to return whenever we wished. Brandy and I were overjoyed, and we said our goodbyes with a heartfelt farewell. Just before we left, I had a thought, turned around, and was surprised when all the wee folk dropped to their knees. I gave them a blessing in their language. Was it my imagination, or did the place brighten a little after I finished? Oberon, tears in his eyes, kissed me on the cheek. The others were overcome with emotion, waving and smiling as I opened the portal, this time with ease, since I had a better understanding of the world's physics, and we stepped through. We arrived back in the den just 5 minutes after we left. As the men folk were beginning to enter the room, likely drawn by that eerie laugh of the evil presence. Their eyes widened, jaws dropping. I looked around and had to laugh. Apparently, clothes didn't translate well through the portal, as we were all unclothed. The women burst out laughing at the men's stunned reactions. The hilarity quickly died when, with a simple wave of my hand, I dressed us all again. I had outdone myself. Everyone was now clad in fine silks and satins, looking every bit like the princesses of Oberon's realm. When I mentioned this, my little miracle was forgotten in the chaos of everyone trying to speak at once, eager to understand what had happened. It was pure bedlam, but fun bedlam. Once the men were convinced, we realized we had one casualty. Uncle Zeth hadn't recovered from the removal of the Dark Lord and had passed away quietly during the chaos. We mourned his loss. His standing had been renewed, and 3 men took him out to one of the cars. Meanwhile, we women headed to the kitchen. We may have only been gone for 5 minutes, but it had been a long time since we last ate. As several women prepared a meal for us starving girls, my mother came over, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "I'm so proud of you, darling. You know what this means, don't you?" I gave her a blank look, something I hadn't done in ages. All the women laughed, and one by one, they gave me a one-armed hug, making me feel truly part of the family. You just defeated your first evil. It's just the beginning, I'm sure. Right, ladies, my mother said. The kitchen erupted in praise, and we all knew that this would not be the last time I'd defend the light. That night, I was inducted into the family coven. For the first time, I felt deeply connected not just to my family, but to the entire world. I cried for the first time as a woman. It felt amazing. We held the funeral for Uncle Zeth today. As a family, we came to understand his true nature. In death, we accorded him the humanity he had so carelessly discarded. His envy and almost insane anger had made him an easy target for one of the minor great evils to possess him. It struck me as almost an oxymoron, minor great evil, like jumbo shrimp. The coven assured me that, though powerful in its own way, this particular evil was nothing compared to those that still lurked out there, waiting for the next fool to invite them in. I had barely defeated this lesser evil, and my feelings of superiority were quickly replaced with caution. I still had much to learn. Yes, I had access to vast knowledge, but without the wisdom to use it, I was still vulnerable. I was also just beginning to understand the most primal science of all, magic. Sure, I could do a few minor tricks, but compared to the other women in my family, I was just a beginner. So, my training began. I was taught the intricate mysteries behind even the simplest of spells, focusing on motion, form, and sound. I had one distinct advantage that set me apart from my teachers: my ability to convert matter into energy. It would take time, but I was determined to learn. However, I had another weighty responsibility. It seemed that the gift bestowed upon our family was almost like a living entity. While it wasn't certain that it was aware, it was clear that it had a primal need to survive. When Uncle Zeth, with the aid of the Dark Lord, interfered with the natural flow of the gift, it refused to be denied. This was the primary reason my puberty advanced so rapidly. All the gifts meant for my cousins and brother were funneled to me, and I was overwhelmed with an enormous amount of power. At times, I felt like a thief who had taken something that rightfully belonged to others. I was determined to return their gifts to them. I wanted to purge myself of this borrowed power. There were complications. As with all things, there were problems. The gifts I had were meant for those just entering puberty, but my cousins and brother had already gone through the wrong kind of puberty. They had been altered. All the wise members of our family advised caution. I didn't know what to do until the dream. The dream. I dreamt I was in a very ancient, powerful place. A young, beautiful woman in her late teens approached me. She comforted me at first, then praised my instinctive desire for fairness. She seemed wise beyond her years, and I began to suspect that she was far more than she appeared. Her beautiful face turned to me, sensing my awareness. "Yes, young Terry, I am she who blessed your family with the gift in reward for your ancestors' unselfish sacrifice. I am and will be forever indebted to you and your family. I'm so pleased to see the same traits that I valued in them in you. I will help you. Are you sure you want to part with your gifts, so they may be returned to those they were meant for? I nodded, and she leaned over, giving me a sisterly kiss on the cheek. Even though this will leave you much weaker, and much more vulnerable to evil. I nodded again, more determined than ever to do the right thing. She smiled warmly at me, like a mother would at her favorite child. So be it then. This is what you must do. She entered my mind with ease, and though it frightened me, I relaxed at her calming words. My training began in earnest. I don't know how long I spent in that place, but I learned a great deal about the nature of the gift. I learned to manipulate its power and watched in awe as the ebb and flow of energies inside me came under my conscious control. The goddess Ariel, or as she preferred to be called, Ariel, even taught me the ways of the gods themselves. I was amazed by how much trust she placed in me, as such knowledge could easily destroy me if mishandled. Ariel assured me that I would never harm an undeserving soul, that she had seen in me the iron code of ethics that governed my actions. I had no idea at the time, but I was being groomed for goddesshood. Ariel confided in me that there were few left like her, and that many gods had grown tired of immortality, choosing instead to rejoin the Maker, the Creator, as I called him. Others had created their own universes and settled down to live among their people. It was then that I discovered the origin of evil. Ariel shuddered and pointed to a great stone gate in the distance. It stood in the only truly desolate area in this land. Beyond that gate lies evil incarnate, she said. The old ones have no redeeming qualities. They exist only to cause pain and suffering. They've been here since before the Father created this megaverse. It is believed that he was unaware of them, and they slipped in undetected into this new creation. There was a great war between him, his architects, and the elder gods and their minions. In the end, neither side could destroy the other, but through cunning, the light managed to imprison the dark beyond that gate. A non-place, a place where no energy can enter or leave, trapping them in a weakened state forever. The Maker created a race of beings to guard the gate. Their sole purpose was to maintain the seals and keep evil from escaping. They were the 300, a blessed family of semi-divine soldiers of light. This balance was upheld for millennia until a new evil arose. This new evil came from within the Father's own family. Another great war was fought, and many were lost. In the end, the evil was cast out and made to wander for eons until it found its own home. Lucifer, once a proud and respected member of the elite inner circle, a lieutenant of the All-Father himself, believed he could devise a better plan for the governance of the megaverse. His ambition led to a rift within the family, and one by one, his supporters were rooted out and cast aside. Interestingly, their number also amounted to 300. Lucifer, a prince of the All-Father's family, had been stripped of his power. Yet, he still possessed ancient artifacts that granted their wielder extraordinary abilities. Using these, he created a portal to a small pocket universe adjacent to our own, where he and his loyal 300 sought refuge. Over time, his madness grew, and his anger over his expulsion tainted his very soul. In his twisted mind, he craved revenge. The only beings capable of challenging the Maker on equal footing were the elder gods. So, Lucifer set about destroying the gate that held the ancient beings imprisoned, intent on releasing the old ones, the elder gods. In his madness, he failed to consider that these beings would destroy him just as easily as they would anyone else. They were not known for being merciful. Over the course of eons, Lucifer wore away at the gate, eventually creating a tiny, microscopic hole in one of the seals. Slowly, the evil began to seep out. The corruption spread, infecting the stewards of the gate. All but one fell into darkness. The lone protector cried out to the Maker for help. Another great war was fought. The 299 corrupted stewards were destroyed, the gate was restored, and Lucifer's access to this universe was severed. The remaining steadfast protector, a loyal angel, was rewarded for his unwavering dedication. All around the gate, a lush pleasure garden was created, a place of endless beauty and delight. For his loyalty, the angel was granted a name, a source of immense power but also vulnerability. His demi-divine abilities were tied to his name, and as long as only he knew it, he remained protected. It is said that those practicing the dark arts can only truly harm someone if they can uncover their true name. Millennia passed, and Adam, as the angel was now called, lived contentedly in his Eden. But Lucifer once again found a way to cause him distress. Adam felt a deep loneliness and cried out to his Creator. The Creator, moved by his plea, responded with a gift, a companion for Adam. His companion was created from one of his very ribs, and the bond between them was immediate and powerful. Adam was no longer lonely. I raised my hand to signal Ariel to pause her story, as I already knew the rest of that tale. She smiled at me, patted my hand gently, and said, "We shall see, young one. We will see." With that, she vanished, and I awoke. Not only had I received a front-row seat to a history lesson, but I had also learned how to channel my gifts, preparing me to return what had been denied to my cousins and siblings. I pulled on my jogging gear and made my way downstairs to my secret lab. Once there, I removed my clothes, though, in truth, I didn't need them, as I already wore my silver suit, and settled into a comfortable lotus position. I took 3 deep cleansing breaths, focused on my destination, made the necessary calls, and was immediately transported. There wasn't really a physical place. However, I was surprised to recognize certain aspects of it. Perhaps I hadn't noticed them before, but the location where the family coven met seemed almost like a duplicate of the domain of the goddess Ariel. Slowly, the rest of the coven gathered. You had to account for time zone differences when arranging these meetings. Even my mother was present, which was a good sign. She had begun to forgive herself for the brandy incident, though she hadn't yet come to terms with the damage she'd caused by blindly following someone and ruining her son's life. We had forgiven her weeks ago, but she struggled with her actions. Brandy wasn't here, however, as she lacked the intelligence to even learn the simplest cantrip. She had been inducted into the coven, but no one expected much from her due to the damage caused by Zeth and the Dark Lord. I hoped my news would change that. Once everyone had arrived, I introduced myself, an important part of coven etiquette, and gave a brief recount of my dream with Ariel. At the mention of Ariel's name, many of the women gasped. It had been ages since anyone had seen or heard from her. When everyone settled, I continued. "Ladies, before I summon Brandy here, I want to share what I've discovered about the gift." I detailed what I had learned, and only 3 women disagreed. Over the next half hour, we addressed their concerns one by one until we reached a consensus. The main concern was about me, what might happen when I relinquished the gifts. I reassured them that this was something I had to do. I felt like a thief, and I intended to return the gifts, but I would need the coven's help not for me, but for Brandy, and later, for the twins. I received unanimous support. Summoning Brandy was easy, but I had to proceed slowly to avoid startling her. Suddenly, she appeared in the center of the circle. I heard her softly exclaim, "Wow," as she looked around in awe. I waited for a moment, allowing her to settle in and accept her surroundings. Then, with the help of the coven, I began explaining what was about to happen. At first, she was frightened, but soon excitement began to spread across her face. I loved seeing her like this, she was so beautiful. I had worked on the hardest part for a long time. I had been collecting fragments of Brandy's past, when she had been Brian. I was going to try and reintegrate those memories and pieces of his personality back into her. However, she would never be truly male again, as she had undergone a woman's puberty. She had lived as a woman for too long for me to safely change her physically. My goal was to reverse the damage done by the family. As I prepared, I sensed a deep, futile self-recrimination running through the group. I was ready. Before I could proceed, I knew I needed to cleanse the circle. "Ladies, let go of the old and embrace the new. As long as we learn from our mistakes, All is not lost. We have a sister to heal. With a bit of shuffling, sighing, and deep breaths, I felt the tension and anger leave the circle. I had everyone hold hands as I moved into the center with Brandy. Sitting down in front of her, I took her hands in mine, smiled, and said, "I love you, Brandy, and I want you to be whole once more. All I ask of you is your trust." She smiled, and I could see her belief in me. Slowly, I began, taking care not to burn any neural pathways as I removed the damaging programming. I replaced it with her true self. The task was exhausting, and I was sweating heavily. I didn't know this was even possible. For a brief moment, it felt as though Brandy and I were one. Maybe that was necessary for the bonding process. I quickly focused on my task, though, carefully rebuilding Brandy's mind. While doing this, another part of me was working on her physical form. If she had to live as a woman, then by all that is light, she would be complete. Exhausted, I looked around at the anxious and hopeful faces of my sisters and smiled. Well, that was the easy part, I joked. Their laughter was like a tonic. Brandy stared at me in awe. I could see her inner conflict, the man and woman within her struggling to find balance. I hoped it would settle soon. I opened myself to the universal power of protection, and a flood of energy surged through me. As it flowed through the coven, Brandy, and me, it cleansed and healed. Brandy, now looking much more aware and at peace, gazed around before she pulled me into her arms and cried deeply into my chest. I let her cry, it was a healing cry, and I allowed her to release it. Slowly, she stopped, looked around at the women, then locked eyes with me. "I can never repay you for what you've done for me," she said softly. "But know that you have my sincerest thanks. I was so lost, but now, I am found. I feel complete." I squeezed her hands and smiled. "Well, not quite done yet, sis. There's still the matter of your gift." Her eyes widened in surprise. "My gift," she whispered. "Yep," I said with a grin. "I've kind of been keeping it warm for you. It might seem strange at first, and I must caution you not to put it into full use until you fully understand and control it, okay?" She nodded, still in wonder. I explained how the power to know everything worked. I told her how to adjust the speed of the information flow and warned her to stay alert, as the authorities were still watching closely after my own learning spree. I also explained that she would have to gather her own information. I couldn't give her the knowledge I had accumulated. That was my gift, and I wasn't ready to lose it just yet. As I looked into her eyes, I could see the love and amazement there. She realized what I was about to give up. "Just remember, sis, I'll need you for information from now on, okay?" She laughed and cried, understanding fully. We held hands again, and I summoned her gift. I was nervous. How foolish had I become? All of the knowledge had come so slowly and smoothly, I didn't remember how much innate intelligence I had before the gift. My resolve solidified. Regardless of what happened, this was not my gift to keep. I found the gift and began to direct it toward her, just as Ariel had taught me. It felt like thick honey, slowly flowing from me. It wasn't unpleasant, just odd. It was over sooner than I expected, and I felt numb, like the aftermath of getting a tooth pulled. I couldn't help but laugh at the apt comparison. Brandy, on the other hand, had a look of pure wonder on her face. The sisters around us were clapping and sighing in relief, their concerns clearly greater than mine. Slowly, Brandy's expression shifted to one of concentration, and I could feel her gift gathering information at an astonishing rate. It was like a missing limb, I thought. I would probably sense her gift for a while longer. I reached out to her. "Whoa, sis, not so fast. You've got all the time in the world. Just switch to soft acquisition mode like I showed you. No need to let the world know there's another one of us," I joked. But deep inside, I was still sad to have lost my ability to access instant knowledge. My somber expression must have shown because Brandy reached out and hugged me tightly. "Thank you so much," she whispered. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you for everything you've done, especially for what you've given up for me. I love you so much." As the rest of the coven gradually returned to their homes, knowing that I had done all I could for the night, Brandy and I stayed together in the center of the circle, surrounded by the calming energy of the universal power of protection. We relaxed into each other, and I did something I never thought possible. I fell asleep. Waking up felt different. I became aware of the world around me as usual, but something was off. Then it hit me. Of course. The extra gift must be gone. I still felt knowledgeable, able to access any information I needed, but it was smoother now, less demanding. I'd eventually get used to its absence, but for now, it felt as though I still had everything I went to sleep with. It was an odd thought, falling asleep in the circle. I couldn't remember it ever happening before. Did it mean something? I'd have to ask Brandy. I smiled as I stretched lazily like a cat, I thought. I was in my own bed, so either Brandy had brought me here, or the power of the circle had done it. That thought jolted me awake. I had started my journey last night from my lab. No one knew about it, or so I thought. Please don't let anyone have discovered it, I thought to myself. That lab was my sanctuary, my refuge, my playground with my kids, a well-protected space where I could retreat when needed. Just as I was about to worry further, Brandy breezed in. "Good morning, lil sis." "Huh? Come on, time to get up. Breakfast is on the table, and we're not waiting forever, you know." She handed me my robe with a mischievous grin. "Oh, and I hope you don't mind, but I had to borrow a tampon and pad from you. I'll replace them later, okay?" I struggled to get both arms into my robe when what Brandy said hit me. "What?" With a serious look, she met my gaze. "Yeah. Now, thanks to you, I'm a complete woman." Her expression then shifted to the bubbly version I loved. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." She grabbed me, spinning me around in joy, giggling and kissing my face as she whispered, "Thank you." Over and over. I wiped my face with my hand and said, "Geez, sis, you're welcome already." She playfully batted at my arm. "Oh, you. Come on, breakfast is getting cold." With that, she dragged me downstairs. Our parents were already sitting at the table, smiling at us. As Brandy and I sat down, Mother got up to serve a still warm breakfast. "Getting cold, huh?" Brandy tilted her head, smiling widely. "Uh-huh. The eggs have dropped in temperature by 57-83 degrees. She giggled. "I betcha." We all laughed as Brandy showed off her new gift. The next little while was filled with the usual light-hearted banter at the kitchen table while we ate. I was very hungry, seems Brandy was too. We finished our third helping, and our parents exchanged surprised glances. Mother spoke up. "Well, I guess you two used up a lot of energy last night. How do you girls feel?" Brandy and I exchanged a glance, giggled, and assured Mom that we had never felt better. Once again, Brandy reached over and hugged me tightly. The love in our family was back, and it was intoxicating. Mom and Dad joined in, and we shared our first group hug since I was 4 years old. I remembered it vividly, and as if reading my thoughts, Mother began to cry. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. We hugged again, affirming that everything was forgiven. "So, sis," I asked, changing the subject, "do you know how we got back here from the circle?" That was a first. I know no one has ever fallen asleep in the circle before. I was surprised that I even knew that. I could also see in my mind how I had returned to my bed last night. It was strange, I just knew, without the usual pull I felt when gathering information. This felt completely different. While I was lost in thought, Brandy seemed to get a distant look, then suddenly brightened. "Well, sis, I think you were the first to ever fall asleep in a circle. I know it was fine though, since we were both totally saturated in the light. We were safe. But WOW, you should have seen how you came to your bed last night. It was so cool. I was sitting on my bed, just blissed out on the light, when suddenly the 4 corners of your bed sparkled, and whoosh, this big blob of pearly light appeared in the center. When it cleared, there you were. All I had to do was cover you up. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Brandy was glowing as she described it, and it was exactly how I had seen it in my own mind. Weird. It felt like I hadn't lost anything, but now everything was so much smoother, more natural. Turning to Mom, I asked, "Will you be able to help me today? I have quite a bit to do to get ready for the twins. I think it will be best if we heal them both at the same time. It'll be more exhausting and probably more precise than it was for Sis here." I smiled at Brandy, who nodded in agreement, understanding exactly what I meant. "We'll also need to consult the others. This will require more power, especially since they're a lot older. I'll need to make significant changes to both their minds and bodies. It will be a delicate process, and, let's not forget, a one-time deal. Once I give them their gifts, I won't be able to do it again. So, we need to be extra careful and plan for any contingencies." "Sound good?" "Of course, dear," Mom replied. "I'll contact the others and we'll prepare everything. All you need to worry about is gathering the information. I'm sure Brandy can assist you with that now." She and Brandy shared a smile. "How long do you think you'll need?" In perfect unison, Brandy and I answered, 2 days, 6 hours, and 27 seconds. We both hugged and giggled, while Mom and Dad sat there with surprised expressions. Brandy grew serious for a moment, looked at me, then at Mom. "There's something strange going on here," she said, before getting up and heading to our room, her face set in deep concentration. I could feel her gift tugging as she focused on something. I turned to Mom and Dad. "Don't worry, I'm sure she'll figure it out. She'll tell us when she's ready. This is something we'll have to get used to with Miss Brainiac now." I laughed as my parents joined in. I stood up and helped Mom clean up breakfast while Dad excused himself to check on a few things. With Mom off to contact the coven and Dad doing his thing, and Sis busy upstairs, I decided to head to my lab to check on my special collection process. I needed a different approach to gather the T's for the twins. I had Dad collect some samples of their DNA, and now I needed to fine-tune the collection technique specifically for them. I had discovered this trick when I collected Brandy's past. Checking the process, I noted that I had gathered about 55% of what I needed. I gave my little babies a tender touch and left them to their task. It was strange, but I could feel a sense of purpose and satisfaction coming from my machines as they worked. They were practically alive. I moved to the other side of the lab where I had set up my area, a smaller version of the circle. As I settled into a lotus position, I prepared my mind. I sunk into that special place in my mind, knowing I was preparing for a milestone in our family's history. What we were about to do had never been done before. Then again, there had never been a Dark Lord messing with our family before. I'd already sorted out what I needed to do for each twin and the order in which to proceed. I had used scrying to determine which gift belonged to which twin, and I was ready for the transfers. I realized I had been working for 2 days, but no one was concerned, knowing how necessary this was. I hadn't felt hunger, as the light had sustained me during the entire time. I also noticed that my powers were becoming calmer, not as overwhelming and erratic as before. It seemed like I had come to some kind of understanding with them, and the distinction between me and them was fading. I hoped that when I gave the twins their gifts back, it wouldn't cause me to become unbalanced in any way. This was uncharted territory, and there would be unknowns at first, but it was necessary. It was the right thing to do. I felt better as I rationalized the sacrifices I was making. It wouldn't be so bad. I would still have my babies. I chuckled to myself. Everything seemed in order now. I could do this. I resurfaced from my thoughts, checked on my collection process, and confirmed it would be ready in 2 hours. Things were falling into place. While I had been immersed in the circle, the rest of the family had been preparing. The twins were in complete awe that this was going to happen. Their lives had settled into a new normal, and they had never missed what they never had or remembered having. The women of the coven had prepared them thoroughly, taking a lot of time to explain what had happened and what their cousin was going to do to set things right. Everything was in place. I sent a prayer to Ariel, asking her to watch over us during this night, or however long the process would take. I felt her presence and knew she would watch over us, no matter the time it took. We had planned every detail meticulously. We had all the power we needed at our disposal, all had been cleansed, and it was the night of the new moon. Everything was as perfect as it could be. I gathered the necessary items and our family made their way to the twins' house. Everything was prepared for us when we arrived. I took a moment with the twins, who immediately clung to me as soon as I entered their home. I tried to calm their fears and apprehension, only to find that they had none. They were so trusting of me. They just wanted to show their appreciation but didn't know how. How could you thank someone who was about to give you your life back? They simply hugged me, one arm each, and stared up at me with total adoration. It was unsettling. How does anyone get used to this kind of complete trust and love? I didn't know. The other women, sensing my discomfort, gently pried the twins away from me. I gave them a grateful look, and they smiled warmly in return. The men had been busy securing the house against any physical interruptions. The coven had ensured the spiritual protections were in place. Everything was ready, and I couldn't delay any longer. The living room had been cleared, all furniture moved back, and a soft, spongy mat had been placed on the floor. We shooed the menfolk away and closed the doors in various ways. They sat in a circle around us, Brandy, Peaches, Alana, and me. I had asked Brandy to join in, just in case I missed anything. She agreed, her knowing smile giving me some comfort. I hoped that bode well for us. The coven joined hands and began chanting to summon the power. In the center, Brandy and I sat facing each other, hands joined, and sank into the mental circle I had prepared. I called upon all the data I had gathered from my teas and began the painstaking work of rebuilding their minds. It didn't take long before I was drenched in sweat, maintaining a level of concentration that had never been achieved before by anyone or anything, for that matter. I felt as though I was one with the twins, replacing the lost pieces of their minds, brick by brick. Hours, maybe days, seemed to pass as I lost myself in the task. I could feel the power flowing, and occasionally, I would receive a refreshing surge of energy. It would rejuvenate me, and I'd dive back into my work. I knew the coven was sustaining me and everyone else, and we never felt hunger or thirst. I thanked the light for that, as any interruption could have been disastrous. We were blazing new paths for the light, and this would benefit us for years to come. We were discovering immortality in this very moment. This would be another gift for the family. I sighed in relief when I placed the last mental piece into Alana's mind. I had finished Peaches first, just the luck of the draw, I thought. I sat back, allowing myself to bask in the rejuvenating energy of the universal power of protection. As it flowed through me, I watched with satisfaction as the twins' faces transformed from shock to amazement and finally to peace. They were whole again. Everything the Dark Lord and Zeth had stolen from them mentally had been restored. I had also made the necessary physical adjustments, as I had for Brandy. While I couldn't give them their manhood back, I had ensured they were fully integrated into womanhood. It was deeply satisfying to witness. The twins were softly crying as Brandy and I embraced and rocked them gently. It was a moment of profound fulfillment. I gave them a few more moments to process their transformation. All right, ladies, it's time for step 2. Are you ready? The twins looked at me blankly, and Brandy giggled before leaning forward to whisper in their ears. No way, they exclaimed together, which sparked a brief burst of laughter from all of us. Yes way. I laughed. I can't believe no one told you. I heard my mother chuckle. We're so sorry, sweetheart, but we didn't want to raise their hopes prematurely. Ah, okay, Mom, I responded, understanding. I moved on, explaining what was about to happen, how it would feel, and how they should allow it to settle before listening to Brandy's guidance. At Brandy's surprised look, I reminded her that I would likely be unable to assist after the transfer. She smiled and assured me she would take care of the twins. I got the impression she knew more than she was letting on, but I was too focused on the task at hand to inquire further. With eager anticipation, the girls held my hands again. This time, it was just the three of us, with Brandy sitting back, ready to assist if needed. I reached inside, feeling for Alana's gift. I had already decided that she would receive the ability to convert energy into matter, so that transfer was ready. I could feel it flow slowly, like thick honey, as I gave her the power. I also shared with her the knowledge of how to use it. This would prevent any mishaps and ensure she could handle it safely. This gift was the most powerful ever bestowed upon the family, and I knew Alana would be more than capable of wielding it. She was kind and gentle to a fault. As I poured the final bits of the gift into her, I felt that familiar numb sensation, as if the energy was sinking deep into her soul. After that, I had to rest a moment between transfers. I chuckled inwardly at the thought of myself as a kind of magical Santa. As I watched Brandy demonstrate the finer points of Alana's gift, I saw the awe in her face as she conducted small experiments. I witnessed a burst of energy, borrowed from the circle, transform into a silk blouse. Alana smiled and said, "It's the least I can do for you." When she handed me her very first creation as a gift, I was momentarily overwhelmed with emotion. It took me a while to regain control, but with the calming words of the circle and the purifying energy of our surroundings, I soon refocused and was ready for Peaches. Taking her hands in mine, I waited for her to calm down before reaching inside for her gift. The last one I had prepared for her was a force shield, granting invulnerability and super strength. I would miss this gift the most. I pushed aside my selfish thoughts. This was her gift, not mine. The sensation of pouring energy began again, and it was the longest transfer by far, lasting what felt like hours. I later learned it took 2 hours. The familiar numbness returned as I continued the transfer, losing my grip on Peach's hands as I fell into a milky, pearlescent mist. That was the last thing I remembered before slipping into unconsciousness. Once again, I woke up in my own bed, but this time, I wasn't alone. My bed was surrounded by Brandy, Alana, Peaches, and my parents. The air was thick with love, and I smiled as I basked in the warmth of it. I felt a little fatigued, but that was all. The silver skin had vanished, and the numbness had faded. I assumed some time had passed. 2 days, the thought entered my mind. I smiled, realizing I still retained a remnant of my borrowed gift. I stretched lazily, like a cat, and reminded myself how fantastic I felt. As I tried to sit up, everyone immediately rushed to my side, pillows were adjusted, my back was supported, and Mom handed me a cup of steaming tea. She laughed at my expression. "Your sister let us know when you'd wake up, so we were ready," she giggled, and Brandy blushed. "So," I said, trying to lighten the mood, "how's everyone doing? No planets destroyed or buildings moved, I hope?" I laughed, and they assured me all was well. The girls were learning about their gifts and adjusting to their new full membership in womanhood. There were a few embarrassed giggles, but everyone was delighted. The room erupted in a chorus of thank yous as the girls tried to hug me all at once. It was total bedlam, but I couldn't have been happier. I was also informed that Peaches had discarded her stupid name and now wished to be called Patricia. I couldn't agree more. Peaches always felt derogatory. I guess I spoke that thought aloud because the room erupted in peals of laughter. More hugs, kisses, and gratitude flowed. "Please, ladies," I said, "what I did was simply the right thing to do. I didn't expect any thanks for doing what was right, but I'm glad everything worked out so well." I smiled at them all. "Now, what's on the agenda, ladies?" "Breakfast," Mom said, and we all laughed. I was hungry, though. I realized I'd have to get used to being human again. I sighed. Brandy handed me my robe, and we headed downstairs. As we ate, the girls shared their plans with me. They wanted to form their own supergroup and start by taking care of the neighborhood, and eventually expanding to protect the world. Wow, I sighed. That's very ambitious. I completely approve. It's about time this family stepped up and did its duty. I shocked myself with the intensity of my words but quickly realized it was true. For centuries, the family had stayed hidden, afraid to mingle with the world. We had concealed our gifts out of fear of rejection, but the world needed us now more than ever. Evil was rampant, and it was time for some light to push back. I sat back and listened as my new super family discussed details like what colors to use for their superhero costumes. I shook my head as they made suggestions for design and colors, with even Mom getting involved. It was glorious, and I couldn't help but laugh. They all looked a little embarrassed at their enthusiasm, but that quickly passed as I jumped in to help plan their grand debut. Some of the men came into the kitchen, overheard the animated chatter, and looked at each other in confusion. Ladies, we'll just go get takeout, okay? They were promptly waved out of the kitchen as we continued discussing everything. I realized I was having the time of my life. For the first time, I truly felt part of something. Tears welled up in my eyes and slid down my cheeks, but I let the concerned women know that I was simply so happy. This got us all going, and for the next several minutes, we cried, laughed, and bonded as a family. After we had finished lunch, which was brought to us by the men, we regrouped outside in the backyard as the girls practiced their signature powers. Meanwhile, I had slipped downstairs to my lab and brought up some of my creations. I gifted each of the girls with devices powered by cosmic energy, granting them what they lacked. Patricia could now fly and was almost entirely protected from attacks. Amanda had both incredible defensive and offensive forces, and Brandy had her vast intellect and information-gathering abilities. With my devices, I had Brandy and Amanda soaring around like tiny, glowing Tinkerbells. Patricia was giggling as their playful antics turned into a three-dimensional game of tag. Once they had that out of their systems, I bestowed upon them my most precious creations. I implanted telepathic abilities into them and then showed them my inertia shields. Worn as rings, when activated, these shields would surround each girl with a wall of force that absorbed the kinetic energy of any projectile that struck them, as well as energy from things like flamethrowers. The energy was stored in another device of mine and could be released in small bursts, like ice shards or a giant ball of flame. I had linked these devices with their telepathic abilities, making the entire system automatic and controlled. Now each girl had the abilities of the others, albeit in smaller forms. They could enhance each other's powers, and as a trio, they would be unstoppable. I called them the Triple Threat. Brandy chuckled. No, the Fantabulous Four. I shook my head, sighed, and excused myself to go inside, not wanting them to see my tears. I scolded myself for this moment of weakness. I knew what I was doing and what I was giving up, but it was still hard to bear. I sat in the kitchen, crying as I tried to come to terms with what my life would look like now. God, I'm feeling sorry for myself. That's disgusting. Outside, Alana stared at Brandy as if she'd grown an extra head. Patricia, too, was stunned. God, Brandy, could you be any more cruel? I can't believe you, she said. Brandy, feeling their anger through the telepathic link, still couldn't understand it. What? What are you upset about? Jesus, Brandy. Terry has just given us the gift of life, which I'll never be able to repay her for. Then, on top of that, she ripped out her own gifts and gave them to us. That's the most selfless thing I've ever heard of. It's like tearing off your own leg to give it to a cripple, and then you say, Fantabulous Four? Wait, let me go get some salt so you can rub that in as well. Patricia was vibrating with anger, her force shield fluctuating as her emotions flared. Brandy suddenly realized the gravity of the situation. You don't know? Know what? Both Alana and Patricia asked in unison. Think for a moment. Every time you use your gift, don't you feel like you're connected to something, or someone? Brandy's eyes widened. My God, I guess she doesn't know either. Holy shit. What an idiot I am. I have all this information at my disposal, but I didn't realize this. She actually gave away her gifts. Wow. I'm amazed someone could be that selfless. Brandy's realization left her speechless. I'm sorry, guys. I thought you knew. Brandy. Patricia warned, if you don't start making sense, I'm going to bop you one. Her voice was menacing, and Alana had a ball of fire gathering in her left palm, her face grim. Jesus, girls. Calm down, let me explain. Brandy held up her hands. All those gifts Terry received, she incorporated them into herself. There's no way she could just transplant them to someone else. But with her incredible power, she could duplicate them and transfer that duplicate to someone else. Of course, the duplicate would only be a shadow of her power, and she'd always need to augment those powers if necessary. But I wouldn't worry. I doubt anyone on this planet is more powerful than any of us. As for Terry, well, let's just say she's as close to a goddess as one can be. She's 1,000, no, 1,000,000 times stronger than either of us. She hasn't lost a thing. I wonder why she can't see that. Bullshit, Brandy. I felt that power pour into me and out of her. How could she not know she has power? Alana countered. Good question, Alana. A very good question. Why indeed? Brandy looked deep in thought, and the others would catch flashes of her thoughts through their mental connection. Got it, she suddenly exclaimed, making the others jump. It all goes back to the original GIF. The goddess Ariel was so touched by our ancestors' sacrifice that she blessed our family with the gifts. Now Terry has done that again. You can bet that Ariel is in the know and is probably even more impressed with our family now, especially with Terry. I can't even imagine the strength of character my sister has. She honestly thought she was giving all her powers away. She was doing the right thing. I'm sorry to admit, but I don't think I could have done the same. My God. I'm in awe of my little sis. Tears welled up in Brandy's eyes as she came to these realizations. Ah. So now you understand. Good. The girls turned to see a young girl floating about a foot off the ground, a milky glow hovering above her head, resembling a halo. Ariel. The three girls immediately knelt. Girls, please, Ariel said with a warm smile. We're family, no need for kneeling. She approached each of them, helping them up before pulling them into a hug. I'm so pleased with my family. It took some time, but you all turned out wonderfully. That grandniece of mine, Terry, is a true gem. We've been preparing her for a long time now. I think she's ready, don't you? Brandy, Patricia, and Alana could only nod in awe. But Ariel, Brandy stammered, she doesn't know. She thinks she gave her powers away. A warm energy radiated from Ariel, immediately soothing the girl's fears. Yes, I know. Isn't she precious? All you have to do is put her in a bit of danger, and everything will come flooding back to her. She was so determined to do the right thing that she convinced herself she had. She doesn't realize just how powerful she truly is. I could be mistaken, but I wouldn't be surprised if she's even stronger than I am. I'm so proud of this family. The words echoed in the air, and the girls noticed that Ariel was gone. Wow, they exclaimed simultaneously, which sent them into a fit of giggles. Put Terry in harm's way. Brandy mused, how? I finally pulled myself together and rejoined the girls in the backyard. They even convinced me to try out the same devices I had given them, just so I could join in on their training. I had no intention of actually becoming involved in their superhero pursuits, but I wanted them to be as well prepared as possible. The world they were about to protect was far less forgiving than our backyard. A single mistake out there could cause immense harm, not just to them, but to everyone around them. I was a strict taskmaster. I was surprised that they let me push them so hard, but they trusted my experience with their powers and followed my instructions. I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as I molded these budding heroes into a sharp, efficient trio. They had already gone on a few minor excursions around the neighborhood and were beginning to gain a solid reputation. The victims they helped were grateful, and the villains had begun to tread carefully. They even adopted a name for themselves, Ariel's Angels. I thought Ariel would be pleased. I tweaked their devices slightly, adding a shift to the shields around their heads that wouldn't impair their vision but would create a pearly cloud to protect their identities. I also enhanced the power inputs so they looked like wispy wings extending from their backs. They really were angels now. What puzzled me, though, was that the powers I had given away didn't seem to have completely left me. While they felt different, they hadn't fully disappeared. I wondered if my connection to the girls was causing me to still resonate with their abilities. Anytime I tried to delve into that thought, something else would come up: family matters, coven business, or training with the girls. I didn't realize I was being subtly guided until the girls came up with a plan to get me involved. I also didn't fully understand the reverence I was receiving from the family. Yes, I had done miraculous things, and yes, I had taught the coven new tricks. But now, I was just a normal girl. Well, I still had my babies in the basement and kept creating incredible new toys, but that didn't seem to make me more than I was. The hardest thing I had to do was reconnect with my university friends and professors. They were astounded by my transformation, but once the shock wore off, the girls became even closer to me. Some even took me under their wings, eager to teach me everything I needed to know. As for the guys, well, they seemed to drool a bit, but eventually got used to the new me. I loved academics. They could make anything sound reasonable with their trusty tool, logic. I had many heated debates with my professors about not involving the authorities in what was clearly child abuse. When I told them about Uncle Zeth and his recent demise, they became more cooperative. I guess I gained some respect from them for being so forgiving. I soon realized, to my sadness, that I had outgrown even the smartest of my friends. My visits to them became less frequent. I still brought some of my new toys for them to marvel at and explained a few of the simpler devices, even helping to dissect some of them to show how they worked. It was still fun to geek out over them, especially with my closest friend, Jeffrey, who I thought was the smartest among them. We would excitedly discuss the latest inventions and brainstorm ways to improve things. He was awesome. I also spent more time with the university girls, who continued to teach me about fashion, hairstyles, and other girl things. It helped me blend in better now that my silver coating had vanished. I was just another girl, cute, but normal. That, I think, was what helped me keep my sanity in the months after losing all my wonderful powers. I made sure to keep a few devices on me, though, since I was now just a normal girl. I had to be careful about the dangers all girls face, avoiding dark alleys and not getting caught out too late at night alone. The sisters, of course, had more important things to do than hang out with me, so I found myself alone a lot. Oh, and remember Jeffrey? Well, I think he's starting to fancy me a bit. We've gone out together a few times with other couples, but I get the sense that he'd like to go on solo dates. I'm not sure how comfortable I am with my budding femininity yet, so I've made sure to keep things chaperoned. I like him, but I'm not sure if I like him. Sometimes, this girl stuff is hard to figure out. I'm definitely not ready to talk to Mom about it yet, so I just hoped I'd get some guidance by watching and emulating my new girlfriends. Isn't it strange? In all my 14 years in this neighborhood, I had never once heard of a hero or villain. But now, it seemed like they were emerging from everywhere. Well, mostly from the sewer. It seemed, did they live down there and only come out when there was a hero to face off with? The angels were finding more and more Avilders to subdue, and with each encounter, the villains seemed to get craftier, more powerful, and downright nastier. I began to notice a disturbing trend. I tried to voice my concerns to the girls, but they dismissed my worries, saying they were having no problems with the newcomers. Apparently, I was just being a worrywart. If I had stayed a little longer, I might have seen their sad expressions as I stormed off. Whatever, I muttered, making it my favorite expletive. This isn't going well at all, girls, Alana said after my latest storm out, stomping included. It's like we're pushing her further away. This is really sad, and I for one can't keep doing this. I miss her. The other angels agreed, but none of them knew what to do. I had decided that they were fine on their own now, so at the last training session, I gave them my blessing and stepped back. After all, they were the superheroes now, and my role had ended. I started hanging out more with the university gang and even went to a few parties. Jeffrey and I were growing closer, and I stopped interacting with the coven and the family. I spent my time between my lab and my new friends. Whenever the girls had another run-in with a villain, I tried to steer the conversation away from it. I was really starting to resent them. My friends noticed my lack of enthusiasm about the newest heroics and saw my disappointment, but they usually changed the subject to something university-related. One day, about a week after I had distanced myself from the girls, Mom cornered me. "What has come over you, Terry? I don't understand your reluctance to be with your sisters. Is there something I should know? Did they say something to you? You've been so sad lately, and I'm really worried." "Oh, Mom. Those guys don't need me anymore. They've got the powers, not me. I've done my duty, trained them well. They don't want anything to do with me anymore, and they won't listen to me. Why should I care? Listen, we just don't have anything in common anymore. I regret giving them their gifts back. They're just so hot now. God, I'm disgusted with them. I have to live with it, but I just can't be around them anymore. Maybe you and the coven should talk to them. I want nothing to do with them." I pulled myself out of her shocked grip and stormed out of the house. I had no idea I had left her in tears. What was wrong with everyone? I was just a 14-year-old girl. What did they expect? Mom called the coven together for an emergency session. Once everyone had arrived and settled in, she explained what had been happening over the past few weeks and expressed her concerns, not just for me but for the angels as well. She didn't have to embellish anything, as most of the coven had already noticed the disturbing changes in both the girls. They decided it was time to take action. Forming their circle and using the new techniques Terry had taught them, the girls and Terry were summoned into the circle to address everything. It was easy to bring their angels in, but no matter what they tried, they couldn't compel Terry to join. The coven expressed their concerns, shocked by what the girls revealed. They admitted that they had really messed up with Terry. But how do you handle a goddess, anyway? The coven and the girls spent hours trying to come up with a plan to help Terry access her powers, while also saving face for everyone involved, especially Terry. This was a prime time for evil to sneak in, and everyone had to remain on constant guard. Meanwhile, Terry was out on her first solo date with Jeff. At the same time, evil was scheming a major coup. The movie had been hilarious, the company delightful, and the meal afterward delicious. Terry was enjoying this boy-girl thing. Jeff had been a complete gentleman, opening doors, helping her sit, and all night making her feel valued. It was a heady experience for a former boy who had been rejected for most of his life. Some innate balance kept Terry grounded, though, and despite really enjoying herself, she wasn't about to throw herself at Jeff just because he was treating her well. She thought a kiss and a cuddle was acceptable. Terry had learned from her university friends, and Jeff was the lucky recipient of her charms. They were walking back to Jeff's car after dinner when they noticed orange flashes reflected from the buildings around them. It didn't take Terry long to do the math and figure out where the action was. Jeff followed her gaze and saw it too. There they were, Ariel's angels, battling a group of villains. "Let's check it out," Jeff said, trying to pull Terry toward the battle. He might as well have tried pulling the moon, as he was met with no movement. His shoulder almost dislocated when he reached the end of his arm attached to Terry. "Oh, what the?" He stopped when he saw the intense concentration on her face. She hadn't even noticed the pull. "They can handle it," she muttered under her breath. When she noticed Jeff staring at her, she felt the pain in his shoulder and instinctively rubbed it for a few seconds. "There you go, big guy. I think you'll live." She smirked teasingly, but Jeff wasn't having it. He had felt her touch first numb the pain and then watched the inflammation and swelling disappear. He knew that injury from football. He had to rest, ice it, and massage it for days. Terry had done what took hours in seconds. "Who are you?" Jeff asked in amazement. "What?" Terry blinked. "Hello, Jeff. I'm your date, remember? She smiled up at him. Did you hit your head too? Come on, Terry. You know what I mean. You just touch me, and I'm fine. That doesn't happen. What are you talking about? I'm just standing here. I'm not doing anything. Why are you freaking out? Jeff looked deep into her eyes, seeing only truth and concern. She didn't even know what she had done. Jeff wasn't stupid. The last few weeks suddenly made sense. The gadgets, the way she was impossible to move, and now this healing ability. He looked up at the battle the angels were in and saw them in action. Everything clicked in his mind. He staggered slightly from the realization. He knew now, and he just had to prove it to himself and maybe to Terry. Hey, sorry babe. Let's go watch, he said, pointing to their angels. Or, let's not, please, Terry groaned. Come on, Terry. How often do you get a chance to see real-life heroes in action? Please, for me? Sheesh. Okay. Jeff smiled, kissed her cheek, and now had no trouble pulling Terry toward the battle. He watched as the angels did their thing. Yes, he was right. Incredible. How had no one at the university figured it out? They all knew about her inventions. How could no one see it? They reached the fight and watched as the angels handled the villains. Soon, it was over, and the police moved in to take the bad guys away, thanking the retreating heroes. There. Happy now? Terry's voice held a hint of bitterness. Jeff realized why, but wasn't sure how to ask. Well, he thought, might as well go for it. They reached Jeff's car, and he made sure Terry was safely buckled in. She giggled at his attention as he carefully secured her seatbelt and then got in the car. He started the engine, paused for a moment, and then asked, So, Terry, how long have you known the angels? What? Come on, Terry love, it's obvious. What are you talking about? Her nervousness was evident in both her voice and demeanor. My God, she thought, how much does he know? How did he find out? It was clear he knew something. Terry, please trust me. I get the whole secrecy thing, and I would never tell anyone. What you and the angels are doing is incredible, and I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize it. But you should probably stop bringing in any more of your little toys like you call them. Someone's going to figure things out, you know? Jeff gave Terry a fond look that made her heart melt. God, what am I supposed to do with you now? She asked the universe. You're too smart for your own good and mine, for that matter. She looked at Jeff and saw alarm spread across his face. He had just realized how precarious the situation was. Terry laughed. Oh, don't look so panicked. I'm not going to kill you or anything. Remember, I'm one of the good guys. With a sigh of relief, Jeff relaxed and smiled sheepishly. Yeah, that's right. Wow, what a night. So, how long have you known them? Geez. Persistent much? Terry grinned. Well, I've known them my whole life. They're my sisters. Well, not exactly. I mean, we all call each other sis, but two of them are really my cousins. Want to meet them? What? Well, yeah, of course. Are you serious? Terry laughed again, thinking this could be fun. After all, Jeff was one of the smartest guys at the university. Some of her inventions had been based on his theories. He was the one who recognized the effects of the inertia shield. It was his idea. Plus, he was cute. She chuckled again. Yeah, I'm serious. Come on, I'll introduce you. You are the father of some of their technology, after all. But you already knew that, right? Well, honestly, yeah. The effects of the inertia field are well documented in my head. Geez, we worked on that one together. I remember how excited you were when I mentioned it. Wow, what a brainstorming night that was. 2 pizzas and a flat of Cokes. Jeff laughed, remembering the intensity of that night. Terry and he had been on a roll, outpacing the others with their ideas and caffeinated energy. It was a blast. He looked over at Terry and saw the same longing in her eyes. Why, how come? They both started at the same time, and then laughed. Terry finished their sentences. I don't know why we stopped. We always had a blast. We should get back into that. At least that, she finished coyly while grabbing Jeff's hand. They had arrived at Terry's house by then and just sat there, enjoying each other's company. Suddenly, Terry unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned over, giving Jeff a light kiss on his cheek. "Come on in and meet the strangest family in the world," she said, jumping out of the car. Jeff stayed behind, still savoring the kiss. Terry came around to his side and with a quirky smile asked, "Unless you're chicken?" "Bruck, bruck." She danced around, flapping her arms and making clucking noises. Jeff chuckled and got out of the car, realizing he had to get her inside before the men in white coats showed up. Instead of going into the house, Terry led Jeff around to the tree-enclosed backyard. They could hear girlish laughter and, as they approached the gate, Terry grabbed his hand and made shushing gestures. When they passed through the gate, Jeff saw something amazing: 3 angels flying around, laughing, as they threw bolts of energy at each other. "Oh children," Terry called in a sing-song voice. The angels immediately stopped what they were doing and swooped down to hug her. Then they noticed Jeff. "Holy crap!" Alana, always the outspoken one, exclaimed, expressing what the others were all feeling. Jeff stood there, unsure of what to do, with a silly half-smile on his face. "Oh, girls, this is my boyfriend Jeff. Don't worry, he knows all about you. He helped me design some of the gadgets you use. He's cool," Terry said, giving Jeff a big hug and a kiss on the lips. Her sisters stood there, wide-eyed with shock. Jeff realized what Terry had done, and all his tension melted away. He turned to her, lifted her face, and kissed her back. Terry felt her legs give way from the intensity of the kiss and, in the background, she heard the others saying ooh and aya. Jeff supported her, lifting her into his arms, and carried her to one of the swing chairs on the veranda. Terry was still starry-eyed when their mother came out, demanding to know what was going on. When she saw Jeff and the look in her daughter's eyes, she knew exactly what had happened. She smiled and hummed as she returned to the kitchen. Everything was going to work out just fine. Jeff had practically become a regular at the house, so much so that the family considered him one of their own. Terry couldn't help but brag about how smart he was, and it wasn't long before everyone recognized that he was part of the family in all but name. It was clear to everyone that Terry was head over heels for him, and the feeling was mutual. The house was full of warmth and harmony once again. Many afternoons were spent with Jeff relaxing in one of the backyard swings, reading through tech manuals or checking benchmarks on the latest gadgets that he and Terry had created together, while the girls practiced their powers in the skies. Terry, using her devices, was flying right alongside them. Unbeknownst to her, she was still teaching her sisters, fine-tuning routines or demonstrating a new variation of an old device that even Brandy struggled to keep up with. To Jeff, it was like watching a mother hen guiding her chicks. It made him happy to see her so happy. However, he knew he needed to talk to the other girls, away from Terry, as soon as he could. There was something important that they needed to address. His opportunity came the next day when Mom took Terry shopping. The growing girl needed new clothes, as Terry had shot up to 5 feet 9 inches and weighed only 125 pounds. Still, she had a delicate figure, 34C-22-34, and looked fragile despite her strength. Jeff, as usual, had set himself up in one of the swing chairs on the back veranda, reviewing specifications for model helicopters when Terry and her mom left. The girls were busy practicing a new move that Terry had taught them, but their playful collision in midair, legs and arms tangled as they laughed, was a distraction. Jeff had to laugh too, but when he saw the predatory look in their eyes, he couldn't help but relax. It was a fun, chaotic moment, but now, he had something serious to discuss. He called the girls over. They gathered around, and he dove right in. He had learned by now that, when dealing with this family, there was no beating around the bush. "Girls, we have a serious problem, and I'm not sure how much you know about it." That got Alana and Patricia's attention. They sat up straighter, respecting Jeff's intellect. Brandy, however, just nodded, already knowing most of what Jeff was about to say. She was shocked, though, by his insight and decided to let him speak his mind before jumping in. "What is it?" Alana asked. "Well, let me start by saying that I know you three wouldn't be anything without Terry," Jeff began. "You're powerful on your own, but it's clear that Terry is the queen to your princesses. What I don't understand is why she doesn't know that. She's bursting with unimaginable power, but she doesn't even sense it. When I see her out there with you, it's like watching a goddess teach her priestesses the rites of the grove. It's awe-inspiring. Please, don't get me wrong, but has someone put a spell on her or something?" Dead silence followed, and Jeff thought he might have overstepped. Then, one by one, Brandy, Patricia, and Alana nodded. They stood up in unison and hugged Jeff warmly, the kind of hug you give a brother. He felt their warmth and relaxed. "You have incredible insight, Jeff," Brandy said, with the others nodding in agreement. "Yes, you're right. Terry is like a goddess to us. She's the one who gave us our powers. That's the problem. She honestly thinks she gave us her powers, not just duplicates of her own." Brandy had been expecting this conversation and was prepared to explain the family's shame, pride, and the complicated situation with Terry. Jeff, in turn, was in awe of Terry's ultimate sacrifice, which made him respect her more than ever. He already loved her, but now, he admired her deeply. "Okay, Ariel said to put her in some small danger to bring it all out, but why haven't you been able to do that?" Jeff asked, noticing the surprised looks on their faces. He laughed at the irony. "Yeah, I know, she won't do anything she doesn't want to do." The girls nodded in frustration. "Maybe I could devise a temporary blocker for the shield or something." Jeff mused aloud. "No, you're right. She wouldn't even know when the real one kicked in. How do you bamboozle a goddess?" The girls shrugged, feeling guilty for not being able to help their mother goddess and sister. It seemed like a lifetime of mistakes, but now, they were at a loss for how to fix things. "Wait, why doesn't Ariel do something?" Jeff suddenly asked. At that moment, Ariel's voice, musical and resonant, echoed behind them. "And what should I do, young Jeffrey? She is stronger than I, and I cannot compel her, even if I wanted to, which I would never do. No. She must make the conscious choice to use her gifts, and then she will know them." "Ah, a conundrum indeed. But I have faith in you all. The evil is rising, and we will need her soon. You, my dear family, are strong, the very backbone of this world, but even you will not prevail against what's coming next. And then, there is what may come after that. I'm sorry to bring such sorrow, but I have faith in you." As her voice faded, Ariel was gone. "Well," Jeff trailed off. What else could he say? "The only way I see this working is if we somehow get her involved with the fight. The next time you angels are called to battle, she has to be with you. With her innate sense of right and wrong, she will have to join in." A gleam appeared in Jeff's eyes. "Especially if one of you seems to be in danger." The surprise on their faces at the simplicity of the plan made Jeff chuckle. "Hey, ladies, don't sweat it. You couldn't help it. You just don't have a devious bone in your bodies. Fortunately, I haven't been fully corrupted by the virtues of this family yet. I still have at least 2 devious bones left." The sudden, loud laughter echoed through the backyard, startling the birds and setting the mood for what was to come. Alana looked at her sisters and said, "I want one just like him." And so, the laughter continued, leaving Jeff to bask in the satisfaction of finally formulating a plan. It was a full-scale battle. 2 world-renowned heroes were locked in combat with an army of dangerous villains, and the National Guard had even been called in to try and evacuate civilians to safety. But that was no easy task. Every time they tried, the bad guys took shots at the military. Could there be some deeper issue there? Thankfully, no fatalities had been reported yet, but paramedics were staying busy treating minor injuries. Most civilians had been ushered to safety, and slowly but surely, the streets began to clear, though the debris remained. Dr. Zen, a paranormal hero known for his ability to confuse and misdirect, was doing a good job keeping the bad guys off balance, while Majestic Mountain, a massive, muscular hero, was delivering some serious damage. Several members of the Dark Gang had been knocked unconscious, and local police had cuffed them and placed them in paddy wagons. The good guys were winning, and everything seemed to be under control until all hell broke loose. Out of nowhere, a figure cloaked in black appeared, and the chaos began. The villains started to melt, screaming in fear as they turned to black sludge and flowed into the new figure. As the villains fused with the dark figure, it grew larger, until it stood a towering 10 feet tall and weighed at least a ton. An aura of pure evil radiated from the creature, and where it passed, light was absorbed, leaving only darkness in its wake. It was moving slowly, but nothing seemed to stop it. Dr. Zen attacked, but the dark behemoth just laughed. With a casual backhand, Dr. Zen was knocked from the sky and slammed into the ground near Majestic Mountain. The giant hero leapt into action, engaging the dark figure in a fierce battle. They collided with devastating force, sending each other crashing into nearby buildings. The street looked like a war zone, with both combatants seemingly impervious to damage. Majestic Mountain slipped and fell, but quickly recovered, only to be knocked down again, slower this time. The Dark One was toying with him, laughing as it realized its opponent was tiring. This was clearly no ordinary foe, this was something beyond human. Just then, a flash of white light hit the Dark One, causing it to stagger back and fall to one knee. The crowd cheered as Ariel's angels swooped in to save the day. One of them, hovering above, effortlessly lifted Majestic Mountain and flew him to safety, where paramedics were waiting. But the Dark One wasn't finished. He shot a crackling black energy ball at one of the angels, draining her of energy, but another angel quickly retaliated with a blast of white light that sent him reeling. A scream from the sky caught everyone's attention. One of the angels had been hit by the black energy and was falling. The dark energy clung to her, eating through her protection. The other angels tried to cleanse her with no success, and soon, she lay unconscious beside her fallen sister in an ambulance. The Dark One was relentless, firing another black energy ball at a third angel. This time, she collapsed beside her sisters, and the Dark One stood victorious, his laughter echoing through the streets. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a young man from the crowd raced forward. Golden wings sprouted from his back as he leapt into the air, surprising the Dark One. With a look of disbelief, the creature was rocked by an incredible blast of colorless energy. His frustration grew as he tried to fire a black energy ball at the new flying hero, but he was constantly rocked back by blast after blast of the mysterious force. Cornered against a building, the Dark One finally released the energy ball toward the young hero. It shot forward with deadly precision, following the hero's every move. As the ball closed in, the crowd held its breath. Would the hero be able to evade the attack? Would this be the moment everything changed? No. The single word echoed through the entire city, resonating as if spoken by a divine presence. It was as if God himself had intervened. The Dark One clutched his ears in agony and fell to his knees, screeching in pain. The black energy ball had struck, but the male angel remained untouched. There was a shimmering light in front of him, and there stood a silver girl, absorbing the last remnants of the black energy. She turned, and the connection of immense love between her and the male angel was palpable. After a final glance at him, she shifted her focus to the Dark One. The crowd gasped in disbelief. It was the silver ghost. "Eno," the Dark One roared. "You no longer exist. I felt your essence fade away. How can you be here?" The Dark One's screams of frustration were deafening as he unleashed black energy ball after black energy ball at her. She walked toward him, seemingly unaffected by the ferocious attacks, as though they were nothing more than harmless lights flashing around her. The Dark One grew in size, reaching a towering 20 feet. The miasma of evil surrounding him pulsed, and his laughter, gravelly and grotesque, made many in the crowd bleed from their eyes and ears. A collective wail rose from the crowd as the evil energy struck them, but just as quickly, with a wave of her hand, the silver goddess healed everyone, restoring them to full health. The crowd, filled with awe and wonder, realized they were safe. Many dropped to their knees in reverence, sensing the power of the silver goddess. With a snarl, the Dark One leaped at her, attacking with thunderous blows. But she stood unmoved, her only sign of concentration being her tightly clenched fists. The Dark One screamed in frustration and wrapped himself around her, his body becoming a furnace of black energy. The heat emanating from him was intense, felt by those standing 100 yards away. But despite his immense power, the Dark One found himself unable to escape. He tried desperately to get away, but no matter how hard he struggled, he was bound to her. Slowly, inch by inch, he was being absorbed into her. His screams intensified as he pounded her with his enormous fists, but one by one, his fists became stuck to her surface. She seemed to grow nearly twice her size, and with a final wail, the Dark One was gone. The silence that followed was deafening, but it was quickly replaced by a joyous roar from the crowd. Never before had they witnessed such a monumental battle between good and evil. It warmed the soul to see the triumph of good. This moment marked the rise of the light, and the silver goddess had restored its power. The world would slowly come to realize the ascendancy of good. The male angel approached the silver goddess and enveloped her in a loving embrace, his great golden wings wrapping around her. The crowd sighed in awe at their display of love. They then went to the angels in the ambulance, and with a gentle touch, the silver goddess healed them as well. The angels sat up and joined the silver girl in a heartfelt hug. It was clear to all that this was a family bound by love. With a surge of warmth that the entire city could feel, the angels once again wrapped themselves in their cloaks of invisible energy. Their faces were obscured by a pearly light, and the crowd, mesmerized, could no longer remember what they looked like. Even the male angel, who had never been hidden before, was now enveloped in that same glowing energy. And with a sudden pop, they were gone. In the wake of their departure, everyone who had been injured, no matter the severity, was healed. Dr. Zen and Majestic Mountain, astonished by their own sudden recovery, were immensely grateful. The city, no, the world, had changed. A renewed sense of hope spread throughout, and people's faith in the divine was restored. As the familiar sights of their backyard came into view, a collective sigh of relief passed through the group. All the girls turned in unison to look at Jeff. "What?" he asked, stepping back slightly from the combined gaze of 4 sets of eyes. They were all smiling, and that brought him some comfort. Terry wrapped herself around Jeff, her body no longer silver, and hugged him warmly. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart. I just love those wings. You were always my angel, but now you're also the world's. And those energy blasts you threw? They were awesome." The other angels gathered around, and the group shared a heartfelt hug. It didn't take long for the rest of the family to notice and rush into the backyard. First, they expressed concern for Brandy, Alana, and Patricia, having seen the whole battle unfold on TV. Their worries quickly melted away when the silver ghost made her entrance. Then, their attention shifted to Jeff, and they welcomed him to the family. Clearly, the gift had chosen him, and who were they to argue? Besides, everyone already knew he was destined to marry into the family. They winked at Terry, who turned a delightful shade of pink. They turned back to Jeff. "Let's see those beautiful wings again, sweetheart." Jeff, also blushing a little, grinned at Terry. She nodded back, giving him all the encouragement he needed. With that, Jeff's glorious golden wings unfolded once more. He looked like something straight out of a Michelangelo painting, with his strong, chiseled chin, gorgeous curly blonde hair, and now his magnificent wings, making him look every bit the angel. He felt incredible. Of course, Alana couldn't let it all stay light-hearted. "What should we call ourselves now?" "I kind of liked Ariel's angels," Terry said with a laugh, but then Ariel's flute-like voice echoed as she materialized in front of the group. Half the men and women fell to their knees as their personal goddess appeared before them. "What's wrong with you guys? I've said it before, we're family, and family doesn't bow or kneel to family." Ariel winked at her angels as they laughed and embraced her in a group hug. She softened her voice and pulled Terry into a special hug, kissing her forehead. I'm so glad to have you back, my sweet. I was afraid your sisters and your husband wouldn't get you involved enough to get up and running again. I was actually concerned. With you, there's just no telling what will happen. You're at the center of a complete future blackout. Turning to Jeff, Ariel gave him a warm hug and kissed his forehead too. You, young man, are a most welcome addition to our family. The gift blessed you thrice because you're so nice. Ariel laughed merrily at her own wit before fading from view. How does she do that? Patricia asked, eyes wide, as she looked at where Ariel had been. Just then, Terry, Jeff, and Brandy faded from sight, reappearing 10 feet away. Patricia screamed and watched as Brandy, with a matter-of-fact tone, explained, like that. The whole family was stunned. What? Patricia gasped. How did you? Teleportation, Brandy replied nonchalantly. It's really no big deal. The family stood there in awe, still absorbing the fact that 3 of their children were gods. Patricia and Alana faded again, appearing next to the others. Thanks. I've always wondered about that folded space thing, Patricia added, as if discussing a new fashion trend. The entire family was amazed by their children's abilities. Samantha and Edith smiled proudly, their arms around each other. Then, there was a squeal. Terry suddenly flung herself into Jeff's arms. She said, "Husband. Did you hear that?" Her face was glowing with happiness, like a kid on Christmas morning. Edith and George, in unison, responded with a loud, "Not until you're 18, young lady." The entire family burst into laughter. And so, the party began. The barbecue fired up, the punch bowl appeared, and platter after platter of food filled the table. Hours later, the last of the family members had left, some of the elders slightly tipsy, while the children were exhausted from all the fun, especially the games and special gadgets Terry and Jeff had made. Parents had nearly had heart attacks watching their little ones fly past the kitchen window, laughing like loons. What a sight! Terry, wrapped in Jeff's arms, smiled. I just can't get over how amazing I feel. All those powers still in me, running so smoothly and effortlessly together. It's like it just happens. I don't even think about it. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Seeing the looks from the others, Terry held up her hands in surrender. All right, I get it. Well, it worked out well, though, because now all my powers work so smoothly. Hey Jeff, do you realize you're the first guy in 10 years to get a gift? Cool, huh? Have you figured out the third one yet? Everyone just stared at Terry with love and admiration. She had such a big heart, powers that could frighten a god, and yet she retained such a childlike quality that made her impossible not to admire. Alana, narrowing her eyes, brought the conversation back to the issue on everyone's minds. So, what exactly did we fight today? I've never felt anything like that black stuff it threw at me. The original 3 angels nodded, remembering the searing pain that had knocked them out of the sky. Terry started to explain, but Brandy, eager to get it out, motioned for her to continue. It was another one of those Dark Lords, just like the one that had Uncle Zeth, but much stronger. The thing is, I've noticed each evil we've fought seems to be getting stronger, almost as if we're being tested. Each one is a quantum leap ahead of the last. I just hope we don't face anything like that again soon. The next one could be a real nightmare. Good thing we have their nemesis on our side. She smacked Terry playfully on the head. Well, I wish we knew more about that stuff being thrown around by that big dark nasty, Patricia said, still rattled by how just one hit had knocked her out. She was still uneasy about Terry creating a ball of the same black energy. Jesus, Terry. Put that away. What is it? Terry grinned as she saw the mix of fascination and fear in her sister's reactions. I just saved a little from that jerk before I finished him off. Sheesh, did he leave a bad taste in my converters? Anyway, all this is negative energy with a twist. It kind of harmonizes with any other energy. It's like antimatter meeting matter without the big explosion and radiation. Actually, there was radiation, and that's what hurt you guys. It ate your shields and burned you. You're lucky you're made of tough family stuff, or that could have killed you. I think it surprised that old nasty today. That's probably what pissed him off the most. How dare you guys not just die as you were supposed to? She giggled. Terry? Brandy asked in an awed whisper. Did you just describe that energy as having intelligence? Huh? Terry shrugged. Well, not exactly intelligence, but more like a perceived instinct for survival. It, and the evil guys, come from the same place. The energy signature is unique. It's from the abyss. It's usually chaotic, but I think someone or something is giving it form and purpose. Doesn't change the fact that it's chaos, though. I wonder what the creator would think of it. There was a brief silence before a quiet voice asked, "What stuff are you referring to, Terry dear?" Everyone froze in shock as they realized someone else was there. Their radar had missed him entirely. Jeff was half in the air, his reflexes so fast, and the girls had their hands to their chests, stunned. "Ah, hello, sir. You really should tie a bell to your foot or something before you scare my family half to death," Terry said nonchalantly, waving. "Oh, and hello, Ariel, welcome back." The kindly old man, who had appeared with Ariel, chuckled. "I'm so sorry, children. I'll try to make more noise next time I visit. Now, dear, what would I think of what?" His and Ariel's breath caught as Terry manifested more of the black energy she had duplicated. The man carefully took the ball from her hand, scrutinized it, and handed it to Ariel. "Just what do you think it is, Terry dear?" His voice betrayed a hint of hope that she wouldn't say what he suspected. "Well, sir," Terry said thoughtfully, "brandy, and I think it comes from the abyss. But I'm having trouble figuring out who, besides you, could manipulate it. I can now because I had some to play with, but your average Dark Lord or High Demon doesn't have that kind of ability, does he?" "No, not as a rule, young lady," the man replied, sighing. "I would appreciate it if you don't teach your family how to handle this stuff. It's extremely volatile in its natural state. Even this sample, which is quite organized, is unstable. Please be careful." The old man turned to Ariel, a tired smile on his face. "You were right, my dear. She's quite formidable. I feel very old right now." Ariel snorted in laughter. "I wouldn't know why, father." There was silence again as the kids realized they were alone. "Goodbye," Terry said quietly, speaking to the empty air. Patricia and Alana, still processing everything, asked in unison, "Was that him?" Terry and Brandy exchanged looks before answering. "Oh, yes, that was the creator, our father, sort of." Brandy, now concerned, turned to Terry. "You know you caught him off guard tonight? That was probably the last thing he wanted or expected. Even I could tell he was taken aback. So tell me more about this stuff." The group gathered, their attention focused on Terry as she explained everything about the black energy, its origin, and how to defend against it. Though they felt some relief, the underlying concern about the universe, especially what lay beyond it, remained. They were dealing with something far larger than they had imagined. 5 young souls, so powerful yet vulnerable, sat under the stars that night, embracing each other for warmth, unaware of the dangerous presence lurking beyond. Elsewhere, an evil force waited, patient and eager. Soon. Very soon. If you appreciated this story and wish to show your support, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel.